I call to order this District of Clearwater regular council meeting for Tuesday, May 5th, 2026. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are fortunate to be gathered today on the traditional territory of the Simpcw people who have been caretakers of this land since time immemorial. Are there any late items that we are adding to this agenda? Seeing none, can I get a motion to adopt the agenda as presented? Moved by Councillor Matheson, seconded by Councillor Bratton. All those in favor? And that passes. Are there any declared known conflict of interest or pecuniary interest on any items on this agenda? Seeing none, we move straight past that to item 7.1. TNRD presentation, repropose Kamloops SAR Hall. And I believe everybody doing this presentation are online, so we're having a glitch over here, so you'll all have to watch this screen or the back screen. Yeah.
All right, good afternoon, Council. Can you guys hear me?
We can, Jamie. We're just going to try to maybe get you turned up a little bit because your audio is a little low. Just dealing with one screen in the room here. There we go. Okay. Go ahead whenever you're ready, Mr. Vieira.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Just sharing my screen here, see if this works. No, that's the wrong screen. My apologies, now you gotta bear with me. Having technical difficulties. Okay, let's make this work.
We can see that. It does have the next slide thing, but I mean, that's fine. I think it's legible to everybody in the room.
Yeah. Okay, I'm not sure why that's happening, but
there you go.
There we go. Now it's working. All right. Thanks for your patience. Yes, Jamie Vieira. I'm the General Manager of Operations of the TNRD. And with me is Frank Price. He is the Vice President of Kamloops Search and Rescue. And so we wanted to we've offered to get in front of all the councils to talk to them about this project that's been moved forward by the TNRD board, in case there's any questions from council on it ahead of it being more publicly advertised through a public assent process. All right, so very quick background on Kamloops' involvement in search and rescue is we have a grant and aid program that we currently fund, and there's actually two grant and aid programs. There's a regional grant and aid program that provides operating grants and equipment grants to all 5 SAR groups that operate in the TNRD. And then there's actually, predating that service, there's actually a North Thompson search and rescue service that provides a separate grant and aid specifically to Barrier SAR and Wells Gray SAR. For clarity and kind of context of this discussion, local governments are not required to fund SAR groups. However, many in the province choose to, because which probably Frank will elaborate on. It's a very critical service, and they have limited funding options outside of local governments. All SAR groups in BC are all nonprofit and fully volunteer run. So jumping ahead into this project, so where we're at is this project is that a partnership between the TNRD and the city of Kamloops, proposing a new facility that will serve as the home base for both Kamloops Search and Rescue as well as Kamloops Fire Rescue. So in January of this year, our TNRD board approved moving forward with a regional public assent process that would approve 2 things: the borrowing of up to $6.3 million for the TNRD's portion of the construction costs, and up to a maximum of $100,000 for annual operation and maintenance cost of the TNRD's portion of the building. And that will be done through an alternate approval process that will begin later this month. So this is the proposed facility. So the idea being that Kamloops Fire Rescue has to replace their fire hall that's located near the community of Rayleigh. So the idea is having a single building with shared space in the middle that can operate as training and meeting room space. But then there's a split that there's on the right-hand side, you see search and rescue bays, and on the left side, fire department bays. The need for this building, this is, Frank might speak to this further, but currently SAR is operating out of a very small facility that is owned by the City of Kamloops. City of Kamloops does have other uses and needs for this property, so they have put Kamloops Search and Rescue on notice that they need to vacate the building, actually by the end of January, which has already come and gone. However, they are allowing them to stay there until a new permanent facility is established. So back to the project, the total construction cost of that building I just showed is 9.5 million. So of that, the cost split is going to be based on the needed square footage. And so the TNRD's portion of that capital cost is 75%, where the City of Kamloops would be 25%. And when I say TNRD portion, the portion allocated to the search and rescue function, and the City of Kamloops portion is what's allocated to the fire department function. So the building would be jointly owned between the two organizations, and KSAR would be an actual tenant of the TNRD. So therefore, if something ever changed in the future, that TNRD would still retain ownership of 75% of the building. From TNRD's point of view, we would require borrowing because there's no capital reserves in the regional search and rescue service as it exists now. It's just a grant and aid service. So if the proposal would be that a new service would be created and then borrowing would have to take place. City of Kamloops would not be going through a borrowing process. They have existing reserve funds within their fire rescue service that would be devoted to their portion. I should note that of that 9.5 million, there's no cost to the land. Kamloops already owns the land and is contributing that at no additional cost to the TNRD for this project. So a further breakdown of the money, I mentioned 75% of the capital costs coming from the TNRD side. So of that 75%, the TNRD's portion is actually reduced because Kamloops Search and Rescue has come forward to a commitment to our board that they've already launched an aggressive fundraising campaign that they'll be contributing $1.4 million toward the capital costs. So that 1.4 million you see on this table here reduces the total capital cost from the TNRD side. It doesn't change anything from Kamloops Fire Rescue side because that's the 25% that they'd be utilizing. So it is, as I mentioned, a regional service. So that means it's all 11 municipalities and all 10 electoral areas in this proposed service. So the amount that is contributed, it is based on assessed value, just like other TNRD services use libraries and solid waste as an example. It's not contributed directly from Clearwater's budget, but the District of Clearwater and every other municipality collects that portion of taxation for the TNRD. If this went forward, that would be included in that TNRD annual taxation amount. So because all municipalities and electoral areas participate, all residents of the TNRD, including those within municipal boundaries, can participate in the public assent process. So for further clarity, and a question we get asked is around Kamloops, because I mentioned Kamloops contributing 25%. So the question is, does Kamloops participate in the regional TNRD service? So the answer to that is yes, and I'll pause on this for a second because I think it's important to clarify. The 25% I talked about for Kamloops contributing for the fire rescue portion, Kamloops as an entity is funding 100% of that portion of the funding. But Kamloops would also be contributing towards the TNRD portion. And based on assessment, Kamloops contributes about 63% towards every regional function. So going back to libraries, for example, the total library budget, about 63% of that budget comes from City of Kamloops taxpayers. So under back to this case, this search and rescue hall proposal, Kamloops would be funding the full 25% portion that's devoted to Kamloops Fire Rescue, which is about 2.3 million, and then Kamloops taxpayers through the TNRD taxpayers would also be contributing $4 million towards the search and rescue portion of the building. I won't go into detail on this table, but the key piece here, this is an excerpt from the TNRD board report around the tax impact. So the first line there is our estimated or maximum residential tax impact based on 2025 assessment. So if this proposal went ahead, a residential property within the TNRD or any of the municipalities, they would all pay the exact same tax rate, which would be $1.11 per 100,000 of assessment, or $11 per million of assessment, to think of it that way. So before I pass it on to Frank to talk more about the KSAR and what they do, I just want to do a pitch. On our website here, we have a lot more information that goes into great detail around the funding model, the proposed service, and we've actually just putting the final touches on a paper version of this, or a booklet version of this, that we're going to be sending out to all the municipalities, and we hope that you guys could put those out on your front desk so public can pick them up there, and we'll be able to mail them out to anyone who requests them. So another question that we've received at our board level and from the public, and I think it's an important question, is, well, why is this proposed as a regional service? It's called Kamloops Search and Rescue. Why is this being a TNRD-wide regional service? And that's a question I had myself when I first, this first project was first being introduced and talked about a couple of years ago. But I've come to understand that there's definitely it is a regional function and a regional benefit, which I'll allow Frank to talk about further. So I'll turn it over to Frank Peiss to go from here.
Hello, everybody. Frank here. I've spent a huge amount of time over the last 40 years in the North Thompson Valley, and I love the area. Spend a lot of time in the mountains and rivers up there. You guys are very lucky to live where you live. So, who is Kamloops Search and Rescue? KSAR operates under Emergency Management and Climate Readiness, EMCR. We are one of 78 SAR teams in the province. We have about 50 members, and we are a member of BC SARA. It's the provincial organization for search and rescue. We've been around for more than 50 years. Talking more on a provincial SAR level, volunteer hours for SAR in BC last year, there was 119,000 hours that were put into incidents, so like searches, rescues, and recoveries, and there was 269,000 hours put in on training. Those are all hours that no taxpayer has to pay for. So whether it's from Wells Gray SAR or any of the other SAR teams in the province, I really am passionate that I believe that SAR in general is a really important part of the province. We live in one of the best part of the province, or best parts of the world, for recreating outdoors, and it's a service that's definitely needed. Last year there was 3,400. That's fine, Jamie. It's fine. We don't need it. Last year there was 3,400 members in the province, and over the last 10 years, the statistics show that there's been 10,000 lives saved by SAR members in the province. What does KSAR do? We do wilderness searches for missing and overdue people. So whether it's hunters, mushroom pickers, fishermen, hunters, anybody who's out in the outdoors, we can go and help them when they're in need of help. We do urban searches for despondent people, people who are having mental health crises, people with dementia, kids, whether they're, and some of the kids who have disabilities. We do wellness check-ins, so people who live very remotely with poor communications, and if those communications break down, we can go out, check to make sure they're okay, help them if they're needed, and then report back to the RCMP, who then can let the family know what the situation at hand is. We do evidence searches, couple really notable ones. We do lots of them, but a couple really notable ones. Shannon White was from a couple of years ago. Some of you may be familiar with it. There was a young woman who went missing in the Kamloops area. We had, I believe, 12 operational periods for that, and there was over 4,000 volunteer hours put in that. And with a big search like that, we call in what we call mutual aid. So we would call on Wells Gray SAR and the other SAR teams in the provinces to come and help. So with I think all the SAR teams, we do rely on other teams to help us. Another big one was Ben Tyner. So in the Nicola Valley, it was another one that there was probably 12 operational periods. We operate under the acronym LAST, so we locate, assess, stabilize, and transport. And that's the same for all SAR teams. What else does KSAR provide? What else does all SAR teams provide? We do rescues, so we assist BC Ambulance Service. The ambulance service is mandated not to go far off the pavement. So if they're called out, they will call us or Wells Gray SAR or some other SAR team, and we will go find the subject, assess the subject, stabilize them, package them, get them back to BC Ambulance where they can be then taken to a higher level of care. We do body recoveries for the coroner service. You guys had one of those this spring up there. We do fire, flood, and disaster responses. There's another slide here that we'll talk a little bit more about later. We have members who are part of the Adventure Smart program and Hug a Tree, so they go into the schools and other kids organizations like Scouts and Brownies and provide educational information so that they can be safe in the outdoors. KSAR provides a vital service to the community by rescuing people who are lost, injured, or in distress in remote and inaccessible locations. We provide service to the whole 44,500 square kilometers of the regional district. Sometimes we're called out directly because we maybe have more people who can respond, and other times we're called out to support the other teams in the region. We average 50 to 65 tasks per year, and more recently, we probably get 16 people out per task. Those call-outs can be hours long, or like I said, they can go weeks at a time. And in 2024, we had record callouts of 75 calls. Critical regional support. So KSAR fills a vital gap in emergency response. The RCEP and BC Ambulance can only do so much, so we offer services that some of the smaller SAR teams cannot provide, overall enhancing regional safety. The smaller SAR teams are good teams, but because they're smaller and we're all volunteers, people can't just leave work, can't leave their kids, can't leave their other commitments. So as a larger team, there's more likely that we're going to be able to provide enough members or to be able to support other smaller teams. There are 5 search and rescue teams in the regional district. This is from 1 year, but and the numbers vary yearly, but this is a pretty good snapshot on how it all plays out. Kamloops Search and Rescue is probably involved in about 75% of all the calls. Whether we are the major person because we have more capabilities, more specialty teams, or whether we're called out to support other teams. And the numbers there are in front of you. And again, they will vary, a little bit, but this gives you a pretty good idea. We looked at a number of numbers. It just has been updated, but the numbers change, but are similar every year. And next. Some statistics, 2024, we had around 11,000 cumulative volunteer hours. That was the year that we had the 75 tasks. So there was 3,442 volunteer hours for tasks. About 3/4 of those tasks were to support the RCMP, and the majority of the rest were BC Ambulance. We had 7,579 volunteer hours for training, events, and administration. 2025, we had more cumulative volunteer hours. We had fewer tasks. More of them were for RCMP, less for BC Ambulance. Those numbers will always vary, but it gives a pretty good window of what goes on. And when we talked about mutual aid, so one of the calls from this year for Wells Gray SAR, when they were called out to look for somebody, they have a great team, but it's a small team, so they called us and to be mutual aid to support them, to provide more boots on the ground to try and find somebody. And these are just a few of them, but again, another one that was more out of Little Fort was an ATV rollover. Wells Gray SAR was called out. They were out all night. They were pretty exhausted. They worked very hard to find somebody, couldn't find them. They called us in early the next morning. And eventually they went home and we wrapped up the call. Not that they couldn't have done it, but you can only provide so many hours and be safe. So, and we all do that. We support each of the teams. We were also involved in one of the raft rim rope recoveries when a young woman who was taking a selfie fell over the cliff. We do work closely with all the teams, including Wells Gray Search and Rescue. This letter here was from Ryan McClarty, who is one of the SAR managers for Wells Gray SAR, and he is very supportive of this project. And a number of our team members, including Paula, our president, was up for the SIRE for the rope rescue training the other week and was talking to Ryan, and Ryan said, if anybody has any concerns, he's more than welcome to. You're more than welcome. He would be thrilled to talk to you about it. But he is in support of it, and if anybody needs that, they can have that letter. Going back to the wildfire, providing the notice for wildfire in 2021, we did 7 call-outs between July 14th and August 15th. Again, smaller teams, it would be tougher for them to do that much, so they're able to call on us to do that. In that particular year, most of our calls were in the southern part of the regional district, but again, you know, as things change, the areas change year to year. Because we're a larger team, we have more specialty teams, so we have a high angle rope rescue team. Wells Gray has a great rope rescue team. We have a off-road rescue team, we have an ice rescue team, we have a swiftwater rescue team, we have a winter response, an avalanche response team, a snowmobile team. We have a tracking team, and one of our tracking members is a master tracker, so provides the for that course. We have 2 validated RCMP SAR dogs, so they're SAR dogs, but they have to be validated yearly by the RCMP. So just another tool for the toolbox. This is another historic one, but it's one that we were called to the Big Bar area, where that area was where the truck ended up. There was 5 people in that truck. KSAR got all 5 of those people out of there and back up and onto the road. Unfortunately, one of the women in the truck ended up losing her leg due to the injuries, but she still stays in contact with us to this day. So regional hub for all teams, joint operations to coordinate with other teams. We're all volunteers, and with all volunteer organizations, it's harder to attract people and it's harder to retain people. So a regional center would provide some of those things for training, among other things. Mutual aid training, we have 2 of the Wells Gray SAR members down here this weekend for a Justice Institute course. The Justice Institute contacted us to provide an area to do this course. We were unable to do it because you've seen what our building's like. We don't have any training facility or anything in our hall. So to reduce costs and to create a better training environment for all of the teams, if we started training together, it would make us, we would be more familiar with each other, with our strengths and capabilities, and we'd be able to provide a better service. So JIB courses, command headquarters for large scale searches. With things that are happening in the environment, there's probably more chance there's going to be a lot of big searches or events, whether they're fire, flood, or whatever. And SAR managers from the whole region could go there, do all the planning, and they could send all that planning that needs to be done out so that the SAR teams in the field could be more efficient. And will make for better organization and rapid deployment. So it'll allow us to attract more people and retain more people, and not just for our team, but if we're able to provide better training for all the teams at a reduced price, that's going to help retain them, because getting people to join is one thing, but after time, they're looking for something in return, and they should be, and training is one of the big things. Shared infrastructure and cost sharing. So it's a win-win. I don't think there's going to be any new buildings built in the future for any government agency doesn't have a multiple use. So this reduces the cost not only for the build, but for the service. And backup emergency coordination center, as again with climate, as things continue to escalate, we're going to need more of these facilities to help manage the situations at hand. And the next one is just a slide of one of the, we were actually a mutual aid for Shuswap SAR. This is the environment that we work in when we're doing fire notices. It's usually dark and it's usually smoky, but it's a very needed service. So, and that's a service that the regional district asks us to provide. It goes to the RCMP and then the RCMP hands it off to us, whether it's us or Wellsbury or one of the other teams. And I think the last one, is there one more, Jamie, or not? Yes.
Just another photo.
Yeah, this is actually a really good one in that this was a call that we had this year, and it was on Highway 99 past Hat Creek. And for all of the SAR teams, one of our biggest priorities is safety. So this was an MVA that was over a very steep bank down into a creek with ice on it. So to tick all the safety boxes, we had to use our rope rescue team, our swift water rescue team, and our ice rescue team. So some of the other smaller teams don't have all of those capabilities. So whether it's being that we would be called in for that, or whether over time with a new building that we would be able to provide that training for them so that they would have those capabilities. And that's it for that, I believe.
Thank you for your presentations. Are there any questions for either Jamie or KSAR? Go ahead, Councillor Matheson.
Yeah, just a couple ones here. I'm fully in support of this. I think search and rescue has been sadly neglected over the years, and it's nice to see it getting up to a professional level. I was involved in search and rescue for a number of years as a dog handler, and I know the amount of time that goes into it as a volunteer. So it's a lot of work, and I commend everybody for having the vision to make this happen. The one thing that though does kind of jump out at me is that the SAR teams are supposed to be coordinated policy funding and support through PEP or emergency management and climate readiness. What kind of glares at me is, why is the province not investing in this?
I can answer that if you'd like, Jamie, unless. So we all know what the situation of the provincial government is at this point. And not only, so our provincial SAR organization has had talks with the government forever about this situation, because it's not really fair that a regional district or a municipality has to support this. But that's the way it is right now. We actually were at a conference, myself and Paula, our president, were at a conference where all of the SAR teams in the interior of the province were at, and the government was there. And they also, they stated very firmly that not only would there not be any more funding, that there would probably be less funding in times coming up. So the only funding we get right now is, so whether it's us or Wellsbury or any SAR team that goes out, once a task's over, the manager fills out reams and reams of paperwork and submits it in. And at that point, we get paid a small amount. So if we send out 3 trucks, 2 snowmobiles, and 10 people, we'll get a small amount of money. But basically all that money does is cover our operating expenses. So for gas and insurance, and not much else other than that. And they made it very clear that that will not change. I don't think it's fair, it doesn't make sense, but that's where we're at. Now the regional district also supplies funding for all of the teams as well, and Jamie can talk a little bit more about that. And it's very much appreciated, but again, it does not cover everything that we need. And as tasks become more and more complex, I think all the teams have done a very good job of providing a service, but as they become more complex, we've identified that we're probably going to over time need more complex gear, whether it's a shared gear for all the teams in the region. You guys had a call, I think last year or the year before, on Clearwater Lake, where a team from actually Manitoba came in with very technical gear and actually found a body. So Yeah, I agree with you completely. I think we're all on the same page, but it will not change. I'm not a betting person. I would bet the farm on it.
Yeah, it strikes me as a bit of an issue also with, municipal councils with downloading from the provincial government and then downloading on volunteer organizations to become self-supporting and providing a service that's much needed in the province. So I find it very frustrating that it's not being supported by the government and even the federal government. I mean, they also have a stake in this, but that's for another conversation. But I just wanted to thank you for your vision and your work forward on this, and I'm fully in support of it.
Thank you. Anybody else have a question? No, thank you for the very fulsome presentation from both of you and for the work that you do. And council will take this under advisement. Staff will bring back a report, but I'm looking at this seeing $1.11 per $100,000 assessment, and I don't see much of a problem with that. So thank you for your time and thank you for your presentations. Have a good day.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having us.
Bye-bye. Okay, moving on to item 8, adoptions of minutes from council meetings. There are 2 sets of minutes, one from April 14th and then from, one from the 17th. There's a little date issue on one of the resolutions there. So we'll start with 8.1. Can I get a recommendation or mover or seconder for the minutes of the regular council meeting held April 14th, 2026? Moved by Councillor Bratton, seconded by Councillor Matheson. All those in favor? And that passes. And on to 8.2, minutes of the special council meeting held April 17th. Recommendation there as well. So can I get, go ahead, Mr. Prime.
Does not look like I included those in the agenda. It looks like I did duplicate those minutes, so I'll have to bring those at the next meeting.
Okay, so we'll hold off on 8.2 till the next meeting. Hey, that solves one problem there. Take those out of the way. Move on to unfinished business. Item 11.3, Clearwater District Chamber of Commerce request. Staff speaking to this? Go ahead, Mr. Johnson, when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So if, as council will remember, district staff actually put in an application to this same program of funding for ETSI-BC. So I had a discussion with the granting, the person involved in the grants at ETSI when I was down at Silga, and she confirmed that this grant fund is oversubscribed, and then she also said that the grant that the municipality put in is very similar in nature to the grant that has been put in by the chamber, the proposal. She said they would only grant one of those grants. Their preference, because we are the agency that they would normally deal with, would be to provide that grant to the district. But I actually believe there is possibly an opportunity to work with the chamber through this grant process. I think that one of the objectives of this grant is to look at the various economic development proposals would have been in the past, and as well there's some intended to be some discussion with business groups. So I think through this process of this grant, if the district is successful in getting it, we would seek some of those opportunities to engage with the chamber during the grant process. Not sure how that will materialize, but we would look for those opportunities. But like I say, if council supports this grant, then it would be at the probably at the expense of the district grant. Thank you.
Questions, comments? Councillor Sim looks like she's ready to go first.
So I just want to get some clarification on that last comment. So if council endorses this, you're suggesting that ETSI would see it as the District of Clearwater endorsing a chamber application over ours, or would you see it as the District of Clearwater is supporting a second application and letting ETSI make the decision?
Thank you. So the person I talked to said that they don't want to be in a position for choosing who's the successful grant getter in Clearwater based on the grants. In particular, at this time, those two grants are pretty similar. If you look at what's proposed under those. Her preference was that if the district wants to have this grant, and we already previously applied for it, that we would not support the grant from the Chamber of Commerce, just because it adds a level of confusion there. Or if we were to support it, that we would put in clear language in there that our first priority would be a district grant, and if there was funding left over for them to consider this grant. She said, as long as it's clear where the district sits. But she says, if we just fully endorse this grant, she says, how is she supposed to know where the district preferences are?
Councillor Bratton?
Well, just a supplemental, I think that what you're saying on that last one, I really appreciated your comments from the last meeting where you felt that the applications could dovetail and perhaps there's some additional funding. And I think because the work has gone into that application, it maybe if there was a letter of support that said, should there be additional funds to be considered, because it would dovetail nicely. But you're absolutely right to make it clear and not to have that misunderstanding. But there was a lot of work that went in by the Chamber, which was nice.
Councillor Bratton?
I just have one question. Staff capacity, are we good to go if this was a successful grant on the district behalf? Do we have the staff capacity to be able to fulfill its interest?
Thank you. This grant is mainly envisioned to be a consulting project for someone, and in the grand scheme of things, not even a really huge consulting project. So the staff capacity needed to manage that is fairly minimal.
Okay. Further questions, comments? Councillor Frizzle, I'll just ask one while you're getting prepped.
Good. Yeah, go ahead.
What's the timeline for awarding of this grant? Did they give you an indication when this would be awarded?
I'm sorry, I don't know that offhand.
I can't. It's not on the schedule that I know. Go ahead, Councillor Frizzle. Basically, a timeline for completing the intake of grants and then awarding the grants. Okay.
I guess my question is, if we just put in our application, would we have that option of assisting the Chamber in their own projects? Not all their projects, obviously, but being able to sort of dovetail, using Councillor Sim's word, so that we're working together and assisting them with their project.
Well, there's two components to that.
Yeah.
I think if we were to get a grant and the Chamber does not get a grant, and Etsy did say they're only committing to probably getting one grant out the door. So if we were to get that grant, I think we could make the effort to work with the Chamber and work with their members around trying to get that small business lens onto the grant and onto economic development. If we were to both get grants, which again, I've been told that's not very likely, then we would definitely have a conversation about other areas that we could work together and have two kind of concurrent grant processes running.
Further questions or comments? Okay, seeing none. There's no motion listed here. So unless somebody wishes to make a motion to support the Chamber grant letter, we just move on. Okay, at this point.
Well, I would do it. I would just, for discussion, because again, I appreciate some of the comments, is that I would make the motion to put forward a letter by the District of Clearwater to support the application should there be additional funds available, and making that quite clear.
A comment from staff if that's their, no, okay. Is there a seconder on this? Okay,
I would second that if it could be under those parameters.
go ahead, Mr. Johnson.
So just for extreme clarity, when we say support if there's additional funds, so what you're saying is our first priority with that grant fund is the district being awarded a grant.
100%.
Okay.
And I do say that because even though it would be bringing in a consultant, I do see that a lot of the reports that we have and a lot of the documentation is held at the District of Clearwater, so it would make it very, very seamless, and definitely the strong support for that.
Hey, we have a mover and a seconder. Further discussion?
I'm just a little concerned that it could be confusing. They've already made it clear that there's only going to be one, and my impression is there's not additional funds.
And unlikely so.
Yeah.
Right? And so honestly, this motion is because this is how I feel, but it certainly can
Fair,
be voted down,
fair.
right?
Okay, yep, gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah, I spoke with the SCBC folks there as well. I got the distinct impression that there was only one per community. Also, that they are incredibly oversubscribed. That didn't used to be a huge problem. They would usually work with all the grant applicants to ensure they either qualified or if they were not qualified for the grant, that it didn't fall under ETSI-BC criteria to be even considered for a grant, that they would assist them in pointing them in other directions for other grants. Right now, with what the provincial government has been doing with cuts, et cetera, it sounds like just on standard grants, they're very oversubscribed. So anyways, I'll call the...
Yeah, so and even if it doesn't, if this doesn't go forward, I am hoping that staff could write a letter to the Chamber of Commerce and just thank them for the efforts that they put into it. Given the fact that it was so similar, it's nice to know that our community members are thinking in parallel to one another.
Okay, thank you. So I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, thank you. That fails. Moving on to Mayor's report. I'm going to keep it real quick. I was at Silga last week. I'm going to just basically write a report next meeting because it's next week. A lot there. Had conversations with a couple of parliamentary secretaries or secretaries or ministers of state, rural development, housing. Had a good discussion with the health minister on our pending issues here in Clearwater. Part of that conversation, we'll be having a meeting in Clearwater here with IHA management and apparently our new hospital manager next Wednesday. So if there's anybody from council that can attend that, it'll be 3 o'clock next Wednesday. I believe it's a week today, so I'm gonna go the 12th or the 13th. So somebody else can do math. Wednesday, 13th. Yeah, I thought it was the 13th. Sorry, or week Wednesday. There's been, I know that there's a couple people in the audience who are interested in campfire ban. Just before this meeting, I spoke to the mayor of Barrier. They're also considering a campfire ban, but it will not, even with their consideration of that, and they usually go ahead of BC wildfire recommendations. They're still several days away from making that decision. So Chief Smith is not here right now, but I know that several councillors have expressed to me that they would be in basic favor of starting a campfire ban early. So that can be discussed by staff and a recommendation come back. But that decision is generally made independent of council. Council does not make a motion on that. It's up to the fire chief and the CAO and that team. So, you know, stating that you're in support of that, if you want to do that as your point, go ahead, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I did have that conversation with the fire chief earlier this week, and he is monitoring the situation on a daily basis. And if it gets to the point where he thinks, you know, there's too many incidents happening with campfires, or if the risk is, obviously it's very dry and the risk is climbing, then he's ready to move to that in short order if he feels we need to do it now, right? So
yeah, and my understanding, what's today? Today's the 5th. So Thursday, regionally, BC Wildfire Service will put in the 2 and 3 category, which is everything but campfire ban as of Thursday of this week, is my understanding. So it is moving fast, and I know it's exceptionally dry right now, but at the same time, we still have to go on the judgment and a bit of science related to our fire chief. So I'll leave it right there. Councillor Bratton, you're up next.
Had a few things happening this last few weeks. Went to a couple agenda settings, and we had our annual pitch-in, which thank you very much for all the volunteers that showed up. I'm very loud. And thanks to Ms. Culp and Mr. Prime for all their help in organizing. We were able to get some high-vis vests and new pickers, so we're getting a stash created for next few years. Also, thanks to Mayor Merlin Blackwell, for being our head barbecuer for the free hot dogs. It was a little bit smaller attendance this year, but I think for some odd reason we didn't have as much garbage this year, and it wasn't as visible to everybody. So I think that was a contributing factor. So thank you again to everybody that helped out and participated. Went to a Tourism Wells Grey AGM, and just wanted to, they're doing a lot of great work over there. And of course the Info Center is open again. Little fun fact, people from Australia seem to be the biggest visitors at this moment this year, but something that will be happening there, if you do take a gander over there, they have new hand railings up the front steps, and they have hand railings up the inside steps, and they just got they're finalizing a $40,000 grant through Parks to renovate the wheelchair ramp. I say that very loosely. That is a runway. Anyways, so it'll be redone with recycled rubber. The corrugated rock will be taken away. It'll be a smooth path, and there'll be handrails and a small stopping station in the middle so that you can rest. So exciting things to come. I am going to maybe submit their minutes from their AGM, Mr. Prime. Is that a good idea? Because there's a ton in there, and probably a lot to reiterate.
Yeah,
Is that a good
Bratton,
idea?
through the chair. What I could do is provide a link to it in the minutes, if that would help. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Okay. Basically, the gist of things is visitor attendance has gone up. I'll just be super basic. And also, I would like to take note that today is MMIW, and unfortunately, we weren't able to attend, which that is Red Dress Day. A deeply meaningful day of remembrance and awareness for missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit people. Because we are here today at Council, I want to acknowledge the profound importance of this day and the powerful symbolism of the red dresses that you'll see hanging up around town, which stand as a visual reminder of the lives lost. This issue continues to affect families, and it calls for ongoing reflection, respect, and action. I appreciate the work of those who are organizing the walk today and ensuring that this day is acknowledged in the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. On the Tourism Wells Grey AGM, I attended that as well. I'd like to note that staff, I believe Leanne Culp, did an excellent report, and probably with some assistance from Mr. Mayor, if not partnership, laying out the benefits of winter tourism, of tournament tourism in our town, and that presentation with very well-defined numbers of both participants and dollar value estimates went over incredibly well at that AGM, and really did a lot to shine on the idea of the stakeholders, the tourism stakeholders, operators, etc. in this town, what the benefit is of that type of tourism, a lot of which is attached to our sportsplex, but also to our ball field and then the soccer pitches and stuff at the high school. So excellent work on that. Moving on to Councillor Frizzle.
Thank you. I attended the volunteer brunch, and thanks to Ms. Culp for a lovely event. It was great to connect with a lot of the volunteers in town and be reminded of how many volunteers we do have and what a good job that they do. And I also like to thank the volunteers from the day before that worked at Ski Hill and did a great job. And now we no longer have cedar shrubs in front of Ski Hill, and it looks great. And I think it's a really good idea considering that we're supposed to be having a really, really hot summer. So that's my report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Herring and Councillor McKenzie are away, so I move on to Councillor Matheson.
Great, thank you. I think I'll just recognize today that it's Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women's Day, Red Dress Day. And I just want to state that I stand in support of the murdered and missing Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit people on Red Dress Day. We honor those who are missing, those who are taken, and the families who continue to carry that loss. Here in our valley, where we're working toward reconciliation through relationships and shared purpose, this day is a reminder that our commitment must include action, listening, learning, and working together to ensure safety, dignity, and justice for all. So I'm unable to attend the walk today that I was planning on going, so much apologize to them, but I'm there with them in spirit. I've had kind of an interesting couple of weeks. We didn't have to call search and rescue, but my wife got run over by our dog, and ended up with a broken leg. So I've been a little busy with that. However, I did make it up to the search and rescue course up at Raft Rim on Saturday, and I was very impressed. There were over 90 participants in the course, and the level of expertise and training that was going on was pretty mind-blowing. I mean, lowering anybody over that cliff up there is, yeah, it's steep. Let's put it that way. But yeah, it was really, really well attended, well done, and Clearwater's getting a good reputation as being the rope rescue center for training throughout the province. So they were from all over the province. It was really interesting to see. Secondly, then I attended the local fire departments. We're doing wildland fire training for recruits and people to get up to speed, taught by the BC Wildlife Service and or BC Forest Service. And it was interesting to watch them set up the hoses and fill up tanks and put the sprinklers on the houses, and I learned a lot from it. So I think we're coming to a very interesting summer this year. From all looks, it's going to be an interesting year with wildfires, and I really encourage everybody to get out and fireproof their homes. Get rid of those juniper bushes and the cedar bushes around your house. Get clear out from underneath those eaves, and let's just all work together to protect our neighborhoods. It's going to be a very bad year. I have a bad feeling for it. So I hope it doesn't come to that, but be prepared. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Indications from Emergency Management BC is it's going to be a 1 in 150 year hot season this year. So yes, fire smart, absolutely. Councillor Sim, you are up next.
Thanks very much. I do want to thank Mr. Prime for a really good article in the Times talking about STR. I thought it was really well articulated, and again, appreciation for your work. A few things speaking on sort of emergency management. I appreciate the district bringing to the attention about the Voyant alert, and just a real reminder is that we can read that there's a Voyant alert coming up, but you really have to update that app and just make sure, because if you don't update it, you aren't going to actually get the alert. And I know that those instructions are already in that ad, but it's just when you speak to people about it, just make sure that they read that part of it, just not that there's the alerts coming. Also appreciate the Fire Smart with the various advertising and promotion mediums. I think they've been really creative in the way that they're getting their message out, so thank you for that. Within the community, we've got 5 students today attending the Young Artist in Kamloops, which is great. On the weekend, the CSS High School Girls Soccer, they hosted their annual Raiders Cup Soccer tournament where they took second place. This is a great tournament that sees like 8 teams from all over the place, which is great. And also following up on just the sports field and youth, I think there's 116-ish signed up for Clearwater Youth Soccer, which is great. And Minor Ball has also got some 130 do it, and also the adult slow pitch has got a really good league as well. So tons of activity going on. And just sort of in conclusion, if anybody would like to help plan a farewell party for Dr. Perdue, I would love to have your assistance and involvement.
Thank you for that. Mr. Prime, you had a comment on Voyant Alert or something else?
Councillor Sim did sort of get to that the post we put on the website does have instructions in terms of to make sure that you do get the alerts, make sure that it doesn't sort of get auto put to sleep because of the battery optimization on some phones. Otherwise, they won't get the app. Thanks, Councilor Tim.
Yeah. Just a question to staff because the thought on the sports fields brought it up. I did see something on water restrictions inbound. We are going to alternating days already. Is that correct? Yeah, go ahead. Mr. Carmichael, I guess, can answer that one.
Hi, Mr. Mayor. Whoa.
It might be computer screen versus.
Hello.
Try
Is
it.
that working? Too far now? How's that? Oh, there we go.
I think I can hear you, but yeah,
All right.
give it a shot.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, and council, the water use has been extremely high, like 1,000 cubes more than last year at the same time. So we've decided to implement the water restrictions early, and we're going to monitor it and consider going to stage 2.
Okay, good to know. Go ahead, Councillor Sam.
Is there any way that that type of information could actually be on our website so that people can actually see what the water usage is and do some comparisons just to understand what this looks like?
I got that info off of Facebook, but go ahead.
Right now, it would be manual entry of that information. Like we could update it, but
Well, just even like a sort of that graph that shows, 2025 versus 2026, just sort of for that comparison, and even just the numbers, and throw it into our new friend AI, who could probably generate something. Just a thought, because you hear what level 2 water restrictions, but having that understanding that we have always been a high use community, and then seeing it visually, it does make an impact.
yes. So yeah, if we do go to level or stage 2, we'll put out some background information like that, just to help people understand.
Councillor Bratton.
Just to further that, how do we know it's usage and not a big leak somewhere?
We don't know for sure, but
It's a spike versus, what was 4 or 5 weeks ago.
right.
Okay, I'm just curious because I don't see a lot of sprinklers. A few in my yard,
Yeah.
but like normally everybody around me has something going, and I haven't seen it, so that's the only reason why I'm curious.
And we are out looking for leaks too. but,
Okay.
yeah.
Which is another great plug for the water meter program, which should start relatively, this fall is the intent? So yes, so we can start finding some of these leaks. But I have seen a lot of sprinklers. I'm not on town water, but the ones in my yard have been going nonstop for like several days now, especially with the beginning of planting seasons for gardens. There's way more water going out there that may not even all be in sprinklers. So anyways, Mr. Johnson, do you have anything to add out of the CAO report section?
No, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 16.1, staff report, Sportsplex 2025-2026 season report. So I'm assuming that's Mr. Mayor, the back there.
Yes, I have a informational report for you on the 25-26 season at the Sportsplex. It was extremely busy again, increase on ice rentals from the previous year. I won't go over all the details of the report, all the events and stuff. I will say we had tremendous volunteer support as usual at the arena. The staff at the arena did a great job. I'd like to commend Miss Culp because she just does a fabulous job organizing tournaments and ensuring all our visitors have a great time in Clearwater. We did recently have our biannual ammonia plant inspection, and we passed 100%. We're good for another 2 years. We got a full complement of staff now with the refrigeration operator certificates, and the new Zamboni is running great.
Thank you. Any questions, Mr. Mayor? Not seeing any questions for Roger. Thank you for your report. And for 2 pages, I know the amount of work on that is probably this high as far as time, and really great to hear the level of volunteerism going on to support activities at the Sportsplex. Absolutely, Councillor Bratton. Say lovely things.
That's all lovely things. Something I'm very excited to hear is that usage is up even though we raised rates. And so that worried me heavily back when that was happening. So good to know that it hasn't deterred people at this point. So that's great, good.
Yes, minor hockey numbers kind of held their own, and figure skating has just seen a huge growth. And the curling club has seen a growth, and men's hockey, adult hockey has seen a big growth too, so.
Good.
It's awesome.
Cool. There is actually a recommendation attached to this. I generally don't see it on things, but there's a recommendation that accept this information report. Yeah, moved by Councillor Sim, seconded by Councillor Bratton. All those in favor? And that passes. And then we move on to Recreation, Culture, and Events Report 2025 from Ms. Culp. And she's already got it. Oh, we have a slideshow. So everybody look at your nearest screen, and here we go.
I have a slideshow. Okay, let me just get this set up. Can I minimize this, Sid? Okay. Okay, good afternoon, Mayor and Council. So you have the staff report in front of you, but I also have a slideshow here for everybody to look at. So today I'll be presenting a recap of Recreation, Culture, and Events programming and services for 2025. So I'll just be walking through some key highlights, participation, community impact, and also what we're looking ahead to. Oh, if I can get it to switch. So the Recreation, Culture, and Events Department aims to cultivate a community where all residents have access to inclusive opportunities, enriching experiences that promote health, well-being, and connection. So our goal here is to always ensure programs and events are accessible to all members of the community. And ultimately, we're supporting this overall health. Just to briefly touch on the strategic plan again. So our work aligns closely with Council's strategic plan. In particular, we support community partnerships across multiple organizations and groups within the community. We also contribute to enhancing the overall community vibe through social, cultural, and recreational programming. And all of this together supports the broader vision of Clearwater as a vibrant, livable, and healthy community. So as you can see here, we have all our program and services overview. But just briefly, so in 2025, we delivered a wide range of programs, events, and activities across many age groups. This includes both department-led programming within the District of Clearwater and also strong partnerships with community organizations. So programs range from wellness to fitness to arts, camps, sports. We also supported a number of community-led and partnered events, as you can see there along the side. Overall, we did see an increase in engagement compared to 2024, which does reflect a continued community interest in what we have to offer. So a brief summary here. In total, we recorded about 1,700 program interactions in 2025. This was up just over 1,500 in 2024, up from 1,500. I did include this in the staff report, but I didn't write it down here. But one of the types of programs that we didn't offer as much of in 2025 were arts programs. And that was specifically due to the fact that we wanted to support our new art studio in town. So supporting Maple Seed Collective, and instead ensuring that people went and utilized their space there as well. So that was one kind of aspect in our program offerings that we didn't do as much of, but for good reason. So to break it down, when we're looking at registered programs and drop-ins, we're looking at the drop-in programs, the fitness programs, also punch card participation. From a revenue perspective, the RCE programming generated approximately $55,700 for the year. This includes both direct program revenue as well as hockey school programming. So again, steady growth in both participation and cost recovery. Some key achievements that we wanted to note for 2025 were this year, or this past year, we successfully delivered our first full season of kids' summer day camps, which we provided 6 weeks of programming aligned as well as we could, given both facilitator availability as well as working hours for families. We strengthened staff capacity through training, and a big one here was training on-staff Life Saving Society swim instructor. So Coeria Creed is now fully trained up. And we're also supporting future aquatic programming by investing in local youth training, working alongside Cleo Coates, who will also be coming back this summer, as well as hopefully next. And we also, last year, began collaborating with the Public Art Advisory Committee. So that also is pretty exciting for the department and also for the community in terms of public art. Events and community engagement. So a few strong notes here were Canada Day served approximately 600 people, raised over 2,300 for the food bank, which as you can see was up from 2024, which is amazing. Bike to School Week, we had consistent daily participation where for that entire week we meet youth at the skateboard park and then all ride together to Raft Elementary every morning. And the volunteer brunch attendance increased. For the volunteer roster, that is constantly changing and evolving and growing, which is really amazing to see. Sporting events, hockey tournaments brought in approximately 1,300 players and families over 11 weekends. Footy Fest and the North Thompson Softball Slam also brought in visiting teams who stayed within the community. And just a note here, I'm mostly focusing just on the events that the RCE department fully partners with. There's other events obviously going on that are happening, but I'm just sharing our information here. Okay, so that being said, a little bit of our sports tourism and local impact. So as Mayor Merlin mentioned, at the tourism AGM, I shared some information with them there, which I'm going to share here and break it down a little bit. Just briefly on this slide, you'll see in 2025, sports tourism activities in Clearwater generated an estimated $983,000 in total economic impact locally, including $199,000 in wages and $160,000 in accommodation and food services activity. So province-wide impacts reached approximately $369,551 in GDP. To break it down, so we have this table here. And the way that I get these numbers is I use what's called the STEAM calculator, which is the Sports Tourism Economic Assessment Model, where I take all the information from the attendees from each event, whether or not it was a youth or an adult event, how many days they stayed in town, how many nights they stayed at hotels, lots of information, and it brings out multiple pages of information for us. So I just take these 4 numbers. The initial expenditure, the total impact, the wages and salaries, and the accommodation, and then supply that to the Tourism Wells Grey. But I wanted to include it this year as well for everyone to see. So just to break it down, total economic impact, you'll notice that the total economic local impact is about $300,000, which is lower than the initial spending. So you'll see initial spending here, it's quite a bit lower. That's because the model that we use accounts for what's called leakage, so money that leaves the community when businesses purchase goods and services from outside the area. So while over $500,000 is spent here, about $300,000 is ultimately what stays and circulates within our local economy. So wages and salaries. Of the local impact, approximately $199,000 translates into wages and salaries. So this reflects income for local workers, people employed in hospitality, retail, and services that support these events. This is where the impact becomes very tangible for residents. because this is through jobs and paychecks locally. Accommodation, you'll see, is about 161,000 of the local impact. So just to be clear, it's important to note that this is not the total amount that visitors spend on hotel stays. Instead, this represents the economic contribution of the accommodation sector to the local economy, so the portion that remains after operating costs. The actual visitor spending on lodging is significantly higher than this figure that you see. And so it's still a strong indicator of overnight visitation, which typically generates the highest economic return for the community here. The initial expenditure you can see is about $500,000, and this represents direct spending by visiting teams and participants on accommodations, food, fuel, retail. Importantly, this is just new money coming into the community that would not be here without these events. All right, so moving on to some challenges and service considerations. So similar to last year, we always seem to have the same challenges that we're faced with, and that is communication, facilities, and instructors and capacity. So ways that staff have responded to these challenges, again, is in terms of communication, making sure that we're utilizing multiple platforms to communicate with residents, whether it's social media, newsletters, local newspapers, bulletin boards, word of mouth, as much as we can. When we are looking at facilities, ensuring that we're coordinating shared use of facilities with CSS and YCS at the DLCC to support all of the programming. And then with instructors and capacity, as I mentioned earlier in the report, in 2025, it was huge that we invested in staff training for continued recruitment efforts and also encouraging the youth involvement to build future capacity. So doing that through in 2025 and this year supporting Cleo Coates with the swim instructor programming and then Queria Creed with on-staff training. Funding and accessibility is also important to note. So accessibility always remains a priority for us, and we aim to ensure that cost is not a barrier. So as always, we're actively pursuing grants in partnership to offset costs. So overall, staff adapted well in 2025 and continued delivering programs despite these challenges. So looking ahead, some future planning. We're continuing to evolve programming based on community needs and wants. Some notes are expanding offerings to include programs like mountain biking lessons, which is actually going to be released this week. We're hoping to start those at the end of May with Todd Phillips up at Candle Creek. So that'll be exciting. Also with more summer camps, extending our hours for working families, as well as potential Pro D Day programming, because I know that is also a need in this community. Increasing community events and social opportunities, introducing new workshops around health and wellness, and we remain focused on continuous improvement and strengthening our community connections. So again, I'll just close with our favorite quote here for RCE. Oh, or I'll just close it early. So recreation's purpose is not to kill time, but to make life, not to keep a person occupied, but to keep them refreshed, not to offer an escape from life, but to provide a discovery of life. And thank you. I can answer any questions that Mayor or Council has.
Thank you for your very detailed presentation and the excellent work on this. I harken back to the days when Tourism Wells Grey was getting started, and it was data like this that got the funding and the support of council during those days. And the last thing I would say before I go to council for questions or comments, thank you for pointing out that this is just what your program's hands touch. If you look at this list and then you throw all the other things that are going on between car clubs and other groups working in town, music in the park and that sort of thing, we are a very active, very busy place. If anybody says there's nothing to do in Clearwater, I would absolutely challenge that. Questions or comments from council? Go ahead, Councillor Bratton.
With the money that stays in town, is the MRDT included in that, do you think, in the model?
Teresa, through the chair, I am not sure. I can reach out to them.
Okay.
I'm still learning how their calculator works, but I don't know for sure to give an answer.
Okay.
So I was speaking to Claire earlier today from Tourism Wells Grey. So all MRDT funding goes to Tourism Wells Grey. They also have $10,000 worth of funding outside of that. I believe it comes from BC Parks. But yes, I mean, to your question, if I can kind of slice and dice, whatever they spend outside on advertising, that sort of thing would leave town, but it's within the control of Tourism Wells Grey to say where the spend's going to go on the MRDT.
Well, I was just kind of curious about the table that she showed, if MRDT was actually included within the number that it generated with the funds that stayed in town. I didn't know if tax was in.
That's an interesting question, and I'm quite sure.
Because it is,
yeah.
it's a generous amount, so I didn't know if that was included in there. But anyways.
Any further comments or questions? Councillor Sim?
Yeah, in addition to just noting how busy it is, I think it's also really important to note that this is just for 2025. That doesn't include the hockey season that was really robust as well for January to the end of March. And what I am wondering again, especially with the previous report, is when we're looking at how we align the cost for participation, all of this economic impact, with the exception of the hockey camp, seems to come as a result of volunteers. So ensuring that volunteers are actively engaged because we continue to hit a price point that allows them to participate. And how we do that dance with facility costs, but also the benefit is, and I'm just wondering if in those considerations in terms of any recreation engagement, is what's the threshold? Like, where does it come that people say, I can't do it, I can't stretch? Like, and that's rhetorical, but I'm just wondering like how we look at that, because we do have to make sure that if this isn't strong, like that volunteer and that contribution base, then this doesn't happen. Anyway, just sort of some thoughts as we look at, you know, the balancing needs in all aspects of this. So thank you, really great work, and I appreciate Mr. Mayor complimenting you on what a wonderful job you did for being that backbone for those hockey tournaments, because these numbers really show your work. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Frizzle.
Just reading your report, the amount of work you do, the one thing you didn't include is the support that you give me to keep seniors healthy and active, because you do support me a lot in that, and they are very healthy and active, I must say. Thank you for all your hard work.
And go ahead, Councillor Matheson.
I'm just wondering if we could rebrand the rec department to the champion of the North Thompson, or the best, something like that. The best champion of the tournament capital of the North Thompson.
Oh, that'll get under Kamloops' skin. Cool. Thank you for all your comments. Ms. Culp, do you have further comment? Question?
Yes, Mayor and Council, can I just add one highlight that I did forget, but I really wanted to add, because last year we worked with the North Thompson Art Council to bring back the Children's Art Fest, and that was very exciting, and we're going to be meeting next week to start talking more about that for this summer too. So that was a highlight that I missed, but I just wanted to make sure I add that too.
All ages. Excellent. Thank you. Good stuff. Thank you. We're moving on to 16.3, which is Cenotaph relocation. I guess Mr. Johnson is going to speak to this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the intent of this project is to determine a location to relocate the Cenotaph away from Reginald's Mall Park. Through this process, staff work closely with the Legion They're obviously a very key stakeholder in this whole process. And that was a very positive experience where we worked together, identified concerns and issues, and I think we addressed them through this process. So the background of this is that the Clearwater River Bridge Erosion Control Project, we all have talked about it lots. In fact, it's back up on the agenda again today for one aspect of it. But it's a must-do capital project that will proceed this fall. The bridge project will see significant ground disturbance on both sides of the bridge, and that includes construction roads and a lot of heavy equipment working around that. From the risk perspective, the cenotaph currently where it's placed is very close to where that access roads need to be built down to the bridge. So if the cenotaph's not moved, there's a risk it will be damaged through machine contact, or potentially if there's digging around it through some type of a land settlement. It's a fairly heavy little unit, so and we would hate to see that. Plus, if not moved, for this coming November 11th, it would be behind construction barricades, so it would be really inaccessible to folks attending that ceremony. And the other concern, and it's been a growing concern with that site, is it's not really, Reginald Small Park is not really all that well suited to Remembrance Day ceremonies anyway, as the district has taken over that park with potable water stuff. The last thing we put in there was the backup generator, and that took more of the footprint away from it. So that site tends to be a bit on the squeeze side anyways, and then if we need to access our equipment in there, and even if it's at that time of year, we will need to do it because that's critical infrastructure in Reg Small Park. So we've been in discussions with the Legion, a couple of really good meetings with them, and I'm just going to review that engagement record with the Legion. So we first met with them on February 20th and to discuss the need to relocate the cenotaph. We talked about the site we first went to them with was to relocate it within Weyerhaeuser Pioneer Park. We thought that would be a great site, and it still would be a great site for that park due to the fact that, you know, the access is really good to it. There's lots of parking, there's room to march. But the representatives from the Legion didn't really like that site. There was concerns that because it's a bit more of an isolated site, that with no eyes on the park, that there was some concerns around potential vandalism to the cenotaph. Also concerns about the distance of that park from Legion Hall. They would prefer the cenotaph to be closer to the hall itself. So the Legion representatives suggested two sites for consideration. One in the green space between Young Road and Old North Thompson Highway was their preferred location. And the cenotaph would be facing the parking lot for the old Brookfield Mall. Their second location, which they threw as a, if the first one doesn't really work, we would also be happy with 37 East parking lot. So we reviewed the two sites and brought this back to April 27th. And before we get too far, I just want to point out that those two sites are on page 73 and 74 of this agenda. So, and if you could just flip to that, just so you can to really see the sites we were talking about. And the site on Young Road is on page 74. And you can see the cenotaph would be squeezed right into that area pretty well between Old North Thompson and Young Road. That presents a number of problems in itself, but is a good location from a visibility perspective. If you go one page back in your agenda, you see the 37 East diagram. And the intent there is to tuck the cenotaph in to where the slope is. So tuck it into the side slope, do some excavating in there, with the goal being not to encroach on the actual parking lot itself. The further you tuck it into the slope, the more it leaves that parking lot space intact. So those are the two locations that we brought back a discussion to the Legion with. So the actual report I made to the Legion is included in this report. And our meeting on April 27th was actually the full Legion membership was there. There were 25 to 30 members present there. And that's including the executive. The staff reviewed the pros and cons of each site. Both locations are good from a visibility and parking perspective. That's versus the current site. The current site is quite constrained, as we already talked about. Both locations could serve as a permanent location for the cenotaph. The Young Road site, though, has its issues just due to its adjacency to the old North Thompson. So potential for snow being plowed onto the cenotaph site, potential for road salt damage or sand damage to the cenotaph, and of course the potential for motor vehicle accidents. We could protect the site with no posts or whatever, but if a heavy enough vehicle was to drive into it, there's significant potential for a motor vehicle accident. The other issue that we had with the Young Road site was that there is a water main running somewhere along Young Road. And I say somewhere loosely. We have picture diagrams that show exactly where it is, but by the time you put a shovel in the ground, it's not always exactly where you think it is. So that's a pretty big consideration. We wouldn't want to have to dig up that or to disturb the cenotaph in the future, it just due to some piping, right, that needed to be replaced at some point. So we talked about the pros and cons with the Legion membership, and they actually changed their mind from their preferred site being Young Road to supported the relocation of the cenotaph to 37 East. And that was not everyone voted, but everyone who voted for it. So I think it was a relatively popular decision. Some interesting discussions would happen during the meeting. Potentially changing the marching route for the color guard. If it's at 37 East, then potentially could marshal down in the DLCC field and end at 37 East, and that would include the possibility then of maybe closing down the old North Thompson during Remembrance Day ceremonies, which is a benefit. Not that we're trying to encourage traffic whizzing by people having the ceremonies, but from a perspective of emergency responders and emergency management, it's nice having that laneway open. So the Legion, if council approves the move to 37 East, the Legion is going to work on that possibility themselves about how they can reorganize that march. It was stated during the meeting that it was a desire to relocate the cenotaph once. They weren't interested in, I didn't sense any interest in just moving the cenotaph temporarily and then moving it back. They want to just move it, get it done with, have it permanent. Our goal at the district is to get that project fully completed and finished off by Remembrance Day. And I've been assured by our public works folks that that is a doable thing. And it also should be noted that even after the installation, 37 East remains a parking lot. And that's primarily for beach parking and RV parking and maybe other activities there as well, but primarily a parking lot. So, and we were clear with the Legion on that we're not taking 37 East and turning it into one big park with grass and everything. We'll do a great job on relocating the cenotaph and the associated things, some of the benches and the flagpoles, but we're not turning that whole thing into a remembrance park because it's too critical as a parking lot. And then I got to say, even though I hate to throw a negative in there, there's a possibility of some site disturbance at 37 East due to the bridge project. There still may be some site disturbance where we need to store some rock inventory, some of the riprap that we need to put down. In talking with the engineers, he said we could keep it down as far away as possible from the actual cenotaph. And try to ensure that any disturbance would be after November 11th. The other thing about relocating the cenotaph, it actually creates a bit more room on the rebuilds on the bridge site itself. So some of that extra rock could be kept down there. And then finally, of course, we will have to find an alternate location to temporarily store sand from road sweeping. you council has probably noted the last few years that we've had sand piles down there that we clean up eventually. Once we have the cenotaph down there, I don't think it's respectful to do that. So we will have to make that change. There's a cost estimate attached, $99,000. That seems expensive, but there's cut, there's fill, there's pulling the old cenotaph out, moving it, placing it down, and then also fixing up Reginald Small Park, refinishing that where it was going, like replanting grass in there. So the interesting thing though is what we're proposing is that we feel that the bridge project itself has the room in the project to cover this cost. And if that all works out, and it looks like it will at this point, even though we haven't opened up all tenders on every bit of the project, but it looks like there should be some room for this. If there is, this is part of the site prep for that project, and so we could end up putting this in and getting it funded under where that grant funding comes from. However, while that's kind of a happy thought, it should be noted that the district guarantees the costs on that project, on the bridge project. So if there is cost overruns, we have guaranteed that we will pick up those cost overruns. So if there is, then we would end up picking up some of this relocated cost anyway. So looking positive. I think it's a good plan to go there, but you know, we need to wait and see how that project works out in the end. So the communication with the public, we've talked lots, or I believe quite extensively with the Legion folks, really positive conversations, and we will do our normal advertising before we actually start the project to educate the rest of the public. So council's options are maintain the cenotaph in its current location with no relocation. As stated already in the report, that's a pretty, that's not a really great option. Or temporarily move the cenotaph to a different location until the bridge project is completed, and then replace it in its former spot. We already talked about that as well. Select a suitable location and direct staff to proceed with the move. Locations have been discussed, include Weyerhaeuser Pioneer Park, Young Road, across from Brookfield Mall, and 37 East parking lot. And the staff recommendation is that the relocation happen of the cenotaph to 37 East parking lot, and that council approves the relocation budget of $99,000 to be funded as part of the site prep costs for the Clearwater River Bridge Erosion Control Project. Thank you, council.
Questions on this? Go ahead, Councillor Matheson first then.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank staff and the amount of talking with the Legion members on this. I know it's a very sensitive subject with them, and I really appreciate the consideration that was given about their input for this location. I think the location works well, and the fact that the majority of the cost, if not all, is covered under the bridge construction project already going on. And I was curious as to why it had been moved from the other location that they had talked about earlier, but this makes total sense of you know, the utilities and everything else that goes on down there. And I think in the long term it would be a nice addition. I guess the only feedback I've got is that, you know, it was intended as a parking lot. We're looking at putting in more Loggers Memorial there, plus this memorial. It sort of fits, but I'm a little concerned about taking away from parking spots. But I think that's probably manageable. So I'm behind moving it there for sure. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Councillor Sim.
Thanks very much. Just on that, and because I go back sort of in history and time, and it seems that 37 East was a park and parking lot. Are we still good on that?
My understanding is that the visions around creating a park there have diminished with the idea that we have lots of parks. We have lots of maintained grassy areas. The intent is to use it more of a parking lot, and True Consulting brought that report back, and True actually worked on this little thing to make sure this works within their vision. There was for 37 East, there's a bit of a road relocation plan to make that the intersection at Dutch Lake Road, make that work a little better, right? So but that's built into this plan, and that's why we're tucking the cenotaph all the way over to the side so it doesn't get in the way of that. But other than that, there's no real intent other than to clean the site up and in the long run make some boat parking up on the top of the site and turn it into really great organized parking for oversized RVs and such using the beach. So there's no, the park aspect of that has kind of gone away. That was a discussion for, I understand, quite a number of years, but.
Yeah, and I look at the Wells Gray Information Center, which is a Class A park, but a very large parking lot with a small area of park. And the reason I ask is because I don't think anybody wants to think of the Cenotaph and the Legion being in a parking lot. And I'm wondering if we are almost at the time where we could rename 37 East to something else, like whether that be Legion Park or something, but to just put it at 37 East, is it time where we could look at changing that?
Yeah, I think that's an idea.
And then just a one follow up on that is, when you were in discussion with them, did they bring up the fact that they had brought forward their crosswalk proposal, and was that going to be factored into this?
Thank you. That's a great question. And we didn't actually talk about that because that project needs to wait until the bridge project is completed, because there's going to be massive traffic over that. It actually works well with what their original vision was of having a crosswalk going across the base of Dutch Lake Road there. That actually works really well then, right? Especially if there's marshalling down here for the parade down at the playing field here. So I think that needs to be on the back burner until the bridge project is completed, but by all means, council loved it when that report came forward. So I think that's still a great future project.
Councillor Bratton.
So if the funding doesn't actually pan out from the bridge fix, where would the funds come from then?
Thank you. The funding would come, my presumption is surplus funds.
And we don't have any, sorry, we don't have any funds left over from TMX. Did we already apply that to other avenues? Okay, just double checking. One other further to that, this looks like are you having to call in engineers to do this as well, because you're cutting into the bank and don't want sloughing and all of that lovely fun stuff?
Sorry, I missed the gist of that question.
Are you having to
this
actually acquire engineers and stuff, like
Does this have
big
to be an
ticket
engineered
items?
plan?
Oh, for sure, this will be an engineered plan.
Okay.
And True's actually done the work on it, done the development of it. There's not that much more development to do. It's not a complex project. It's pouring a concrete pad, site prepping the area, and then moving the base, right? So, but True will definitely be engaged from the perspective of making sure it's placed properly and making sure that it works well with the other plans that the district has for that whole area, right?
And that sounds good. And also, I just wanted to say thank you for making sure that they are included, that the Legion is included, and that their wants and needs are looked after and requests. I think it's very important. The other thing, it does look like you're adding trees and whatnot, so you're beautifying to a certain degree.
Thank you. Yes, the intent of this is to put this together so it's a very nice, respectful
Not just
thing. It's not just going to be something placed there in the gravel and you go enjoy it. It's going to be done up. It's going to retain the flag poles. There's been a suggestion that the benches should get replaced down there. So it's not just going to be the individual footprint. There's going to be time and effort spent to make sure that it is appropriate for the purpose.
Oh shoot, I had one other question and I lost it. Never mind. It was right there.
Okay, one more, Councillor Sim.
And just to follow up on and maybe it's too premature for the road closure, but and I can see the value of having it open, but are you suggesting it's just open for emergency vehicles, or would it be open for general public or general traffic?
I think it's too early to state that yet. I think that's an opportunity perhaps. But the Legion members said they wanted to work on what that route would look like. So I would respect the fact that they want to do that work before we say, yeah, the road's going to be open or it's going to be closed. At the end of the day, you probably, from a respectful, quiet position, you probably don't want too much traffic going past during Remembrance Day ceremonies.
And I really appreciate that, Lens, because it is true. Like when you have that whizzing, it does disrupt it. So thank you.
Yeah, remembered your other one. Councillor Bratton, go ahead.
So the Loggers Memorial, in relation, if this passes for this location, where is the Loggers Memorial going to lie?
That's a great question. Now, I would suggest that council maybe could consider installing that down in Warehouse or Pioneer Park. Yeah. There's potential. Council has all the options. Now, okay. I would, of course, want to bring that back for a fulsome discussion with council. So, but yeah, council has options, right?
There we go. Yes, thank you for that. There is one long recommendation. What is the desire of council? Thank you for moving that, Councillor Matheson, second by Councillor Frizzle. Any further discussion? I think this is a good compromise and a good plan to get things going, and thank you for all the work on this. All those in favor? And that passes. We'll go on to 16.4. After 16.4, we'll take a break. So mobile food vendor request. There is a recommendation and a staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this report is really about two things. It's about the fact that there's a specific request for a mobile food vendor, but the larger question is, how does council want to handle those type of requests on district lands? So, and by way of background, some municipalities have very well developed policies around that. We don't have a policy around if people want to do those type of activities on municipal lands. So think about it from those two lenses about what we're trying to achieve with this. So we were recently approached by Mrs. Susan Ward, who proposes to establish a mobile food truck vendor on district property specializing in Mexican food. Preferred locations are 37 East and Dutch Lake Beach property, both municipal properties. This is a seasonal business and is proposed to start somewhere in the last half of May and run into early October. Staff supports the proposal in principle, but feels that perhaps 2026 could be considered a pilot project for this, where we see how this works, see if there's issue. That will, running this as a pilot project would allow the ability to consider the impacts of traffic congestion on either one of those sites and parking availability. And will help us to see, is this thing a go and we want to encourage it and develop a policy, or if maybe it isn't. I think we'll find that out through a pilot project. Current status for mobile food vendors: they're actually a legal use, subject to compliance with zoning, and when located on private property, their business license application must consider written permission from the property owner. So there is a number of other food trucks in town on private property. We do not have a policy guiding the placement of these on municipal lands, other than except for a concession at Kapustinsky Park, which is a totally different issue because that would be geared towards events. Because we do not have a policy regarding this, we don't have any regulation regarding the acceptable sites on district lands for a mobile food vendor, allowable hours, days, and months of operations, requirements, if any, for moving the mobile unit out after daily operations, fees to be charged for the placement on district lands. We know there would be a fee required for a business license, but any kind of a land occupation fee, we don't have that in any bylaws yet. Distance requirements from other vendors or restaurants, and that is if council thought any was required. Wraparound services, garbage disposal, access to washrooms, placement of tables and chairs. And we don't have a process which is open to everyone. So if someone else were to see this and say, hey, I've got a food truck in my backyard, why didn't they ask me? We don't have a process yet for that, and that is something, if this works out as a pilot, I would suggest that's the fair way to do it in the community, so everyone has the right to think about that and perhaps make an application. So the business licensing aspect of it, it requires council approval if it's on municipal property, must be inspected by Interior Health, inspected by the fire inspector from our volunteer fire department, and the vendor is responsible for placement of garbage receptacles, including daily emptying, and the vendor is responsible for ensuring the location is kept clean and free of any waste materials. And a separate business license would be required for the food truck, even though the proponent currently holds a business license for the Hungry Hiker restaurant. It's considered a separate business, and a separate business license would be required. So future considerations, as mentioned a few times, this would be a pilot project this year if council approves, so that any renewals, we would consider some of those aspects around how did it work for parking and traffic congestion or any other issues. There's no fees associated, we already talked about, so when we review our fees and charges bylaw this year, I think we may want to think about what's that appropriate level of fee. And I would say most municipalities do have a fee set, and depending on the site or the size of the community, some of those fees are fairly high. This is the only request that I know of, or that staff knows about, that we've received for a mobile vendor on district property. So if this is the direction council endorses, we would develop a policy around mobile food vendors, establish an expression of interest process to help determine vendors for the future, and include some type of an evaluation process to help select the best proponents. That could be a tasting of their best things, which to me would be a lovely evaluation process. Tacos and churros. So council can direct staff to take this approach for this year, but the concern is if we take the full-blown approach of let's get a policy, let's figure out the competitive portion, by the time we're finished and complete, well, this season will be over, or mostly over. So it's not really suggested. Location considerations. So the proponent looked at a number of private locations in Clearwater and felt that the best locations she would like to locate to are 37 East or Dutch Lake Beach. Dutch Lake Beach, she expressed when we met with her, was her preferred location. Site would allow food service to our busiest seasonal location. Obviously, the concern with there is with congestion of the site, and it's really the same concern with 37 East as well, right? And it should be noted there's an existing mobile vendor on the Jasper Way in property, and that's adjacent to the beach. That mobile vendor has had a business license since 2021 and kept it in good standing. And the out of respect to that person, I contacted the operator of that truck, and she expressed opposition to the idea of another food truck in the location. She felt it would be competition, and she felt there could be more garbage, traffic, and septic issues. From the perspective of the district, we don't necessarily agree with some of those issues, like the septic issues. For the record, we don't have any policy language which prevents council from allowing another vendor in this location, even if there's one close by. And in fact, some municipalities encourage that. They create little food hubs, sometimes they call them, or little tourist hubs where they want more vendors because it creates more vibe. So there's no rules around that. Council has a free hand at that point in time. 37 East was actually another location suggested by the proponent. Traffic concerns probably less, even though at times that site can get busy, and we are trying to push more of the larger RVs to park down there. It's still not a highly utilized site. There's usually more room down there. It's probably doesn't, from the perspective of the amount of people who would stop by, it probably wouldn't be as busy as the beach, but that's just my gut feel. there are going to be some construction projects going on at 37 East, as we know. We just approved one, the very previous report. So that will be going on. That is not likely to be a hugely intrusive project. In the grand scheme of things, it's not a huge project. So the vendor qualifications, the proposal we have is from Susan Ward, the operator of the Hungry Hiker restaurant, experienced restaurateur in Clearwater. She also has experience with food truck operations. Generally speaking, restaurant operators are very logical candidates for operating food trucks, given their expertise in that sector and in food safety. And food safety in a food truck is even harder to achieve just because it's you don't have the as much air conditioning and everything else, so, or as much power to run things. So you want experience. Ms. Ward's stated intentions are to create a Mexican menu for the food truck, offering a wide variety. Her plan is to operate full-time from the startup in May until the closing date at the end of the season. So while allowing food trucks on district lands, clearly it's not a significant strategic decision. But if it does function well, and if it leads to a policy that actually works for the district, it does add a certain amount of, I hate to use the word vibe again, but it does add a feature to the community that wasn't there that a lot of people would enjoy, particularly if you come in during the busy seasonal time, right? So there's a number of options on this. Deny the food truck request, approve the request, allowing a food truck at 37 East or at Dutch Lake Beach, or potentially a combination of sites. If one site got busy during construction, you could, allow a little bit of flexibility there. Direct staff to develop a more comprehensive policy base regarding mobile food vendors, and publicly advertise an expression of interest type process. As suggested, I believe that's best left until after seeing the season. And the staff recommends allowing the mobile food vendor to locate on district property at either Dutch Lake Beach or at 37 East, subject to approval by Interior Health and a fire inspection. And I should add that Ms. Ward sent some pictures of what the proposed food truck would look like, and I believe a copy of the menu that we could just flash up there. And she is also here in the audience if there's specific questions the mayor may wish to direct them to her.
Okay. Oh, there we go. Questions of staff. Councillor Matheson.
Yeah, I'm kind of interested in this. Would there be picnic tables and places to eat, or is it just a grab and go sort of situation?
Take a look at my friend.
There we go.
Further questions or comments? Go ahead, Councillor Bratton, and then Councillor Sim.
I love the idea. I love food truck vibe is fantastic, and I'm torn between the two spots, but if that looks like a layout, that would be really tough at Dutch Lake, unless you would negate the picnic tables because they're already at Dutch Lake. But my little bit of an issue at 37 East is potties. There's no bathrooms unless we brought in a potty, and that would be my only concern. If it's okay to move around, possibly a time at 37 East and move over to Dutch Lake, I don't know. That's kind of where my brain is. But I'm excited about it.
You comment on that? Or no? I think that was sort of in the thought process that it could be either or yeah. You can't be in both places at once, but.
Yeah, and it might be interesting to have some of that flexibility, because considering this would be a pilot project, it would give you the chance to really say, hey, this works better at 37 East, or potentially works better over at Dutch Lake Beach. In some ways, Dutch Lake Beach is a better site because it's got washrooms there, it's got power there, it's got water there. It's, it's more of a full service site. But 37 East, there we would need to consider the porta potty question. But I mean, if it got tied up during construction, we could say, hey, move down to the other location, and or we could specifically ask them to split time between both, just so we get a sense for what location is better. It is mobile after all, right?
Yeah, and also noting that, I mean, this is a mobile unit. If there's an event in town and that's where people are going to want food, there's a high likelihood that they may want to move up to a different location for a day or a festival or something along those lines. Councillor, did you have one next? Councillor Sim, and then back to Councillor Matheson.
Thanks very much. And if you consider it a pilot, as you've described, and the fact that it could grow and maybe who else might want to, Dutch Lake does kind of limit that because there isn't a lot of opportunity to grow. There was a temporary one several years ago that was put in at Dutch Lake. It did take away a lot of the parking. And so, you know, and it didn't come back a second year, which I found interesting. But that was then, doesn't mean that that's now. And so if it was to be a pilot, is it best to pilot something where there is an opportunity for growth, is one of the questions I'm asking. And then the second thing is just, have we gone out to just do a courtesy inquiry to some of the other restaurants in the area that might be impacted? So for example, the Stop that's up on the top of the hill, we are sending out our property taxes. So how do our property owners feel about doing something like this? And I'm not saying that they will be opposed, but just doing the courtesy so we don't hear about it later. Was that considered by staff?
So I did look at some of the municipalities have a have a distance requirement from other operators and restaurants. The only one the main one I saw, or most common one, was 200 meters. So there is nothing within 200 meters other than the food truck right across the way.
Yeah, and I think that that's really fair, but in the absence of having that policy or having the time to develop it, because I think the creativity and the innovation and the listen, I want to revitalize my business in a different way is so outstanding. And it's that type of energy we want to see. But I am looking at perhaps what the unintended consequence might be on people who were there, given that we don't have a policy and there hasn't been any consultation. So is it too much just to do a reach out, just do a pulse and say, this is what's come forward? Because we don't have a fee attached to it. So it is being able to set up within the district without cost. And maybe some of our business owners might not feel great about that. They might feel super supportive of it too.
So I'm curious, so what distance would you like for a reach out?
I would say that I would do the ones that are impacted on that side of the highway. And there's only a few. You've already done the Dutch Lake one. And then it would be, I think the Painted Turtle is probably too far out and it's not even comparable, but out of courtesy. The Stop. So it's really just looking at two.
So, and I think the offsetting piece to it, even though I'm not speaking to the owner's business, is that she had a restaurant in town which was involved in a fire. So that competition has been removed, right? So the overall net spaces to eat probably hasn't increased any and probably is still decreased. Similar
clientele given that traffic zone. I'm just saying it's a courtesy just to make sure that we're not hearing about it after. That's all I'm suggesting it, because if we go, I hope we go forward with this to have it successful in all veins. That's all I'm suggesting, is just to have it successful in all veins and just to ask those questions just to confirm.
I think it was Ken next.
Sorry?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Just speaking to Shelley's thing, I get what you're saying. I think that's something that could be covered. You know, if this is going to be a pilot project, and I'm all for moving forward with creating a policy around this, so we have something in writing how we can format all this and put business licenses in place. Part of that is going to be community input. And I think it's important also to talk to the business owners in the area to see how comfortable they are with mobile vendors coming in and operating in our community and what the distances should be. And again, getting that policy in place. I don't know if it's really necessary to do that at this point because it's a temporary thing through the summer. It's not going to run through the whole thing. I'm just thinking of staff time. It's something that can be done.
2 phone calls.
As things go on, as we develop the policy. And put that input in there. I see a lot of possibilities here. You know, it enhances the community vibe. I would love to see a food vendor fest. You know, I've seen those in other communities. They're pretty wild. So I see lots of possibilities here, and I don't know if they're thinking of continuing this on afterwards, but I would love to see this continue in our community, and I'll support it. We do need eating establishments here, particularly right now through the summer season. We are very low on places to eat. It's getting tough. So I think the more help we can give on this, the better. I'm wondering, I'm torn on the location. I like both locations. I see the advantage of the beach property because it gives you our access. My biggest issue there is the parking. It's congested there at the best of times. I think 37 East is probably the location that I would go with on this at this point, and it will drive traffic. It's high visibility area, lots of room to move around, and I think it's a great pilot project and get the feedback from the community as this goes on, and opens up all sorts of possibilities. I'm fully supportive of it.
Okay, Councillor Frizzle and then Councillor Bratton.
You sort of took over what I was going to say about the parking at Dutch Lake. I just feel that maybe there wouldn't be as many people stopping there because it's already so crowded, people at the beach, that they're not going to stop and eat, but whereas they would down at 37 East because they can pull in and whatnot. That was just my thought as we're sitting here talking about it, that I think that the Dutch Lake might be a hindrance rather than a bonus.
Councillor Bratton.
I'd like to be a devil's advocate to that because we're already stopped there with our children and need to feed them. But that's another aspect to it. I have a question actually of Ms. Ward. The truck is mobile. Does that mean you're going to move it every night? Have you thought about that? And the only reason I'm asking is like accessibility. Would that become an issue?
20-foot long food trailer. Do you want to use the mic? So believe it or not, we have people that listen.
It is a 20-foot long food trailer. It would not be my intention to move it every night, especially in 37 East where picnic tables would be set up. That'd be an awful lot of work. Dutch Lake, if that is a location that you folks think would work, I would not set up picnic tables for the exact reason of not taking up too much room, right? That's, like you say, it's busy enough there.
And I have one supplemental question to that. Was there any thought process to the old Safety Mart parking lot? Is that a viable option? No.
I don't feel that economically that would be good, the best site for me.
That would be a rent.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
And to Shelley, if any restaurant you call and ask them if would you like another restaurant, they're going to say no, absolutely.
I don't believe that was my question.
Yeah. Okay,
in all honesty, it's because we're what you're suggesting, and it sounds very supportive, is just to give them the chance for feedback for an operator that would be coming in, but we haven't set any fees. And so that is a very different scenario than for somebody who is, especially with property taxes and coming out. To me, it's just a courtesy. And we just take that information. Like the staff has already reached out to one, and what Mr. Johnson said, he said the septic issue, well, staff didn't really agree with that. So it was good to get the feedback and hear. So it doesn't mean that it's the absolute. Does that make sense? It's just out of courtesy to other people because it is so new, innovative, and could be pushed through quite quickly. Just courtesy, so there's no, we want it harmoniously and successful.
Go ahead, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. So on that question, obviously it's a timing thing, and I think the proponent is quite right. Most restaurateurs would prefer less competition than more competition, but I maybe perhaps the way forward on this one would be to say there's a food truck going in down there. We want to hear your input. So let us know how it works for you this season. It's a pilot project to see if it works, and feel free to provide feedback to us. And that ways that could serve to inform the process once we actually write policy and say, okay, we think the best sites are this, and this site. It could help to inform that question, right? Without putting it to them to try to collect feedback and then return to council with that feedback. I think that, again, adds a long time delay process. So, but I think it's good to let them know what's going on and say, we will be collecting your feedback.
Sounds like you're going to do that. Okay.
No, I have one more. Thank you.
Okay.
Just in terms of the pilot project, is that would the 37 East be a good spot for an actual pilot? Because we are going to see some changes with the cenotaph. So if we're going to see what the impact is, do you see with the vision of 37 East, soon to be possibly Legion Park, that will have the opportunity to grow and we can actually envision something around that? Because it is such a good idea. Like, is that how you see that? Like, if we're going to have a pilot, you test something, and are we just testing it, how does it work, or are we testing a location and how it works?
I think that is specifically what we're testing is, does that location have the sufficient room for the traffic what's going to generate? Are we still going to be able to have some of the parking that we anticipate in there from the RVs and everything else? And is that a great site from the business operator perspective? Are people like, is it the high visibility? And I still like the idea of using this opportunity to test both sites, try to get to the beach site and really get pros and cons for that, so that it may be more of a pain from an advertising perspective or something for Ms. Ward, but they're both good sites and they're both close enough that maybe it's the option to test both, specifically what you're saying, to gain the most market intelligence we can out of it to help to inform that future policy.
I would also note that my understanding is there's another food truck going up by the Info Center for this summer, but also just looking at this as a trial run, as a pilot project for how we set up a policy for food trucks. Obvious locations to me that are district controlled would be the boulevard between Safety Mart and that sort of thing. And we've always many times talked about an opportunity for both retail vendors and probably possibly small food scale operators. But we can really mess this up and not make it a viable plan by getting too involved in it. So the fact that this is a mobile unit, giving it the opportunity to try it a couple of places at Dutch Lake Beach and at 37 East and see what the hitches are. Having personally hosted a new and growing food vendor up at Spahats for multi-years and dealt with the pros and cons and failures and growing pains of that. I think leaving it open right now as a pilot, and then also developing, in the future, I would assume there would be a fee, there would be a rental fee, there would be requirements for potentially hooking up at a location and things like that if they're not fully independent. Other point to make, I just got back from Revelstoke, beautiful community, lots going on. There are food trucks at Revelstoke adjacent to restaurants operating on the street, and they operate as a complementary thing to existing pub or restaurant, providing a different type of food, where the pub actually allows the food truck customers to use the pub patios if they order drinks from the pub. So there could be cooperation and all other types of things that grow out of this over time. And I think we've chewed this conversation to death, and I really want a taco now.
Right. Well, I have one more about the 20 foot, because I didn't see that in the report. Where does 20 feet fit at Dutch Lake?
Pretty much anywhere. 20 feet is not that long. An average pickup truck is over 16 to 17 feet. My green car is 16 feet long.
Seems much smaller than that.
It's not.
And so I'm just wondering, because we've had some feedback from people, RVs park in there, not to create a traffic congestion there. Yeah, I want this to be super successful on lots of levels.
So I had that discussion with Roger, our parks superintendent, manager. But he
Grand
Poobah. And his thought initially was that the best location might be right on the very end spot, close to the Alpine Way, right? Yeah, perfect. That's the exact the location that provides the easiest way for any traffic to come in and out without going and without it disturbing where the actual rest of the beach parking is.
Top right corner of the parking lot. Yeah. Where we set up for hamburgers, with how large is that tent that we set up? That's 30 by 30. Yeah. So there you go.
Oh, on that
Yeah.
Oh, did I open another can of worms? Okay. If we don't go too much longer, I'm going to call a recess if we're going to continue going on, but go ahead.
Really fast, if she was parked there, where does the tent go for July 1st?
Well, she doesn't have to be there every single day.
I'm just, it's just a
But-
question,
but-
if she
no,
happens to be there.
But yeah, no, fair comment.
Motion.
Okay.
So I will make a motion. I would make a motion to extend the opportunity for 37 East for the summer of 2026 as a pilot project. And I will add a few comments in discussion, but that's the motion.
Okay. Seconded. Discussion. Go ahead, Councillor Bratton.
Did I miss in there the ability to?
No, I was specific. And the reason I was specific about just the one is because I look ahead for swimming lessons and the need for all of that space. I hear about accessibility. I love what that vibe could be created on that corner and would ideally start attracting people to start seeing it as an area for parking for the boat launch. I think it really does lend itself well for expansion using that, because as a pilot project, we couldn't have any more at Dutch Lake. But to the mayor's point, you know, there's lots of food trucks in lots of different other communities. Creston was one of my favorite. So how do we really test that location? And also without a policy, I just think it's best that we just try the one to get some real aggregate information. So I am specific about 37 East, and again, commend the innovation of this.
Further discussion? Mr. Carmichael, do you have a comment?
Yes, I'm not sure if I can chime in at this point, but I just wanted to mention the sand is currently being stockpiled there, and when it's removed, it won't be great to have the food truck operating during that time, and the construction of the new Legion. So just having it as the beach as a secondary option during those times might.
Yeah, and that was one of my concerns. That you know, we're floating something here, and we are using that as a construction area. So the ability to have it move occasionally. That said, I mean, we have road sand there, which I'm assuming will be removed within the next little while and stored somewhere. But you know, our construction dates are not firm as to when the riprap crew is going to be there. Theoretically, it could actually be past the operating season for this pilot project, the normal summer operating season. Okay. Okay, Mr. Johnson.
Sorry to keep dragging this one out, Mr. Mayor, but so if the resolution was to support the food truck at 37 East as the primary location, with the backup at the beach if necessary due to conditions at that site, I think that covers off your concerns that it's still mainly at 37 East, but at the other site then covers exactly where Director Carmichael is talking about with regards to if it gets dusty and nasty due to construction. That's a pretty tough thing to put in front of a food truck and say, okay, you just deal with it, right? That's not great conditions.
Yeah, and that actually occurred at Spahat's parking lot with the vendor up there, and it was an issue. So just personal experience local. You could talk to Johan about that if you want. The motions stands as is. Further discussion? If not, all those in favor? Okay.
37 East,
37 East.
just. Call the question. It's like, we've called the question.
Yeah, I called the question. So you can either vote for 37 East or you can vote against and statewide against.
We have 3 votes right now.
You already have, it's already passed, so.
Well, I'm gonna say I'm a no only for. I would like there to be option.
Yeah, and I'm gonna be a no, because I would think there should also be options to do other things as well. So, and to be absolutely fair, the owner of this pilot project, approved business, has the option to move it wherever the heck they want if they find another spot in town that they really like. So,
And because it's a pilot, to get feedback partway through to test some of these things that we've brought forward. But at least we've got some parameters that can be conveyed easily out to the community.
Okay, that is passed as it stands with the 37 East recommendation. We will take a recess till 3:25. Thank you.
That was good discussion.
So moving on to item there is a two-part recommendation here. It's basically to accept the agreement and have the CAO and myself sign off on that agreement. I don't think are we doing a presentation on this, or is it just questions to staff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just questions this time. You'll note that this doesn't include, obviously, any additional service like the Valley Connector like we were hoping for. This is sort of just standard as is. BC Transit is still committed to doing a service review starting in around December this year.
Okay.
That's kind of outside this is just the annual operating agreement to keep moving.
Okay, and BC Transit did have a booth at Silga and did have the opportunity to talk to them and confirm that basically there is the funding situation as it sits with no expansion of services will continue through 26 and 20 to 27 operating years from there, and is what they understand. So probably the earliest opportunity to go back and ask for this is probably sometime in 2027 for 2028 if we do want expansion. So there's no really, I kind of said, is there any point in pushing this? And they said absolutely not. It's not going anywhere. It's not in the provincial budget, and there's no room for expansion. So the agreement as we have it here is what we have opportunity to deal with. So any questions, comments? Councillor Frizzle.
Just the one question on the service specifications on the days that there's no service, the Good Friday, Easter Monday, all of those. Are those part of expansion? Like if they wanted to do a Victoria Day where there's ball games and whatnot?
So anybody, in my understanding of things, could book out an extra bus,
Right.
and on a paid-for basis. And Mr. Prime, you can speak to that.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
But they're not going to run their own.
No, they're not
route
going to provide extra service unless somebody
Okay.
requests and then pays
Yeah,
for that
yeah,
service.
yeah, get that part, but
Yeah.
okay.
Okay. Good. Okay, so there is a recommendation. What is the desire of council? Moved by Councillor Sim, seconded by Councillor Bratton. Awesome. The recommendation is that council approve the Clearwater Transit 2026-2027 annual operating agreement, and the council authorize the mayor and chief administrative officer to execute the documents. All those in favor? And that passes. Thank you for that. Moving on to 16.6, the biomass wood chip supply and a recommendation to award a contract. Any comments or anything from staff on this? Go ahead, Roger.
None really, except that this is great pricing and is guaranteed for 3 years. Right now, we're paying $63 a cubic meter, and this price came in at $52 for 3 years. So.
Yeah, well, I think it's looking at it and looking at the potential, because we have to approve the contract. Vendor on this, they are basically creating exactly the type of product. Doing a lot of it is sort of fire smart work in around town anyway, so it's sort of a perfect marriage of an operator needing to get rid of a certain dry wood type. So that's good.
So moved.
So moved. Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Fizzle. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor, and that passes. Moving on to 16.7, a riprap reconstruction of Old North Thompson Highway Bridge, and there is a staff report as well. This is for the construction part, not for the riprap supply itself, which will be done at a later date. So, questions of staff on this?
I would just move the recommendation.
Look at that, we're just moving along. Moved by Councillor Frizzle. Councillor Sim, seconded by Councillor Frizzle. Any further questions or discussion? Liking the pricing on this one as well. All those in favor? And that passes. Move. You can absolutely ask one question. You could have asked it before.
So now that that's been approved, do we have any idea how close we are to construction? Or getting down there and working?
Yeah, so the construction window is between November and February.
Yeah, we're
So the construction's not really going to be an issue except for the moving of the cenotaph.
For 37
For,
East property, yeah.
for 37 East.
Yeah, we're-
Finish my thought.
Yeah, we're restricted by salmon
Right.
water levels.
No,
And then at the other end, the other end of
Yeah,
Fresh Head and things
yeah.
like that. So yeah,
No, that's good then.
And I've asked True to come in next week and just give you an update on all the projects they're working on. And
Perfect. Great. Thank you.
excellent. Thank you. Okay, moving on to the fun stuff. This is adoption 2026 to 2030 financial plan bylaw, and then we move on to tax rate after that. So 17.1 is first for adoption. Questions of staff? We are going to be moving the bylaw for the 2026 to 2030 5-year financial plan for adoption.
Just a question on that. Do we is it included in this budget? Do we have the funding for the seniors program for next year?
I assume so.
I just got thinking.
Question.
It is
I
a really
haven't-
specific, but I know that sometimes it's had to come back to us, and it's such an important program. I just wanted to.
I would have to get back to you on that.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure if it was in last year's, it would have been in this year's.
The funding amount was $5,000 or $8,000.
I thought it was like 12,
I don't for seniors funding.
10.
That was
Okay,
10.
there you go.
I'm pretty sure it's included.
Do I hear 8?
Or 12.
Okay.
That is something, because I think it is just so well loved.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Do I have a mover and a seconder on this 17.1? Moved by Councillor Matheson, seconded by, thank you, Councillor Frizzle. District of Clearwater, 2026 to 2030 5-year financial plan bylaw number 332/2026. A bylaw to adopt the 2026 to 2030 5-year financial plan, whereas section 165 of the community charter requires that council shall adopt a 5-year financial plan. Now therefore, the council of the District of Clearwater, an open meeting assembles and acts as follows. This bylaw may be cited as the District of Clearwater bylaw number 332/2026 to 2030 5-year financial plan. All those in favor? And that passes. And is adopted. Then we move on to bylaw number 335/2026. Bylaw for the annual tax rate to be read for a first and second time, and then a third if we get past first and second. I think there's a presentation coming first from Ms. Klassen, because I see something up on the screen here.
If you like, I know it's,
Okay, do we want a presentation? Okay, thank you. We'll do a presentation.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Today, the purpose of my report is, which is on page 107, is to introduce the tax rate bylaw and give it 3 readings. The process that we've all been through is lengthy, and it's a circular process. We start with the strategic plan, and we've introduced the business plan this last year. We go through a permissive tax review. We go through a community grant review. We do the financial planning, and we also go through a year-end audit, which we are 95% complete, and now we are here with the property tax bylaw as well as just completing the financial plan bylaw. In 2026, the property to 2030, in the financial plan, we said we would raise $3.9 million in property taxes. A single-family residential property will see an approximate increase of $153 per year, or $12.75 per month. The business property, the average business property will experience an increase of about $658 per year, or $55 per month. The assessments, to remind you, the average assessments for residential classes increased 2.7%, while business increased 0.7%. And the raising of $3.9 million in taxation is about 9.52% increase over the prior year. One of our goals is to be consistent between 25 and 26, not moving the taxation burdens too much between the classes. You can see that the business classes remained at 23%. The residential increased 1%, while the utilities reduced by 1%, and that really is due to the utilities class. We are governed by legislation at a maximum, and we've kept it at a maximum, and so the other classes would have to take that on. What are your tax dollars paying for? So this is for the average residential property at $130 a month. The $130 will be paying for roads and fleet services for $39. It'll be paying for $34 to go to reserves. General government services are $17. Emergency and fire and bylaw is $13. Parks and recreation is $12. The sportsplex is $7. Community development is $5. Transit is $2, and economic development is $1. Here are the requisitions. The 2026 requisitions for other governments is $2.7 million versus in 2025 they were 2.5 and 24 was 2.3. The percentage change of all the requisitions is 8%. Here we go. And here in the district, municipal taxes is 3.9% over 3.6, so an increase of 10%.
So, sorry, Ms. Klassen. So just to put a pin on that, so I just want to clarify that when we're talking about these taxes, it's really important for the public to recognize all the things that are outside of the District of Clearwater's control.
Yes.
Okay, so,
the 2.7 is all the things that we are collecting on behalf of other governments.
that's right. But we get the honor of collecting it all, so it looks like that final number there. But
Well, you would have to add these two numbers together for sure.
yes, I get that. I'm just saying in terms of what the district
Yes.
district percentage is.
Yes.
Yeah, on your tax notice, there's a wonderful pie chart that breaks each one of these things. Oh, look at that, a wonderful pie chart. so of your tax bill, 59% is the District of Clearwater, and so on and so on. But
Yeah.
I'll let you say that out loud if you wish.
Okay, so the District of Clearwater represents 59% of your tax bill. The next one after that is the school at 24%. TNRD, or the regional district, is at 10, and police is at 3. And then you have some small ones like the regional hospital and the BC assessment. The average resident will pay about $2,863. The average business will pay about $10,552. And our next steps, because we're never quite done until we've read the bylaws and the reporting. So between now and the 14th, there is quite a bit of reporting that is required, as well as the SOFI will be required soon, as well as the annual plan, and as well as a lot of grant reporting. So there's some reporting for the month of May and June. And then we'll think about how to start over the process again with your strategic plan and business plans, etc. So in front of you, you have the tax rate bylaw. Staff is requesting that we have a first and second reading as well as a third.
Okay, questions of staff? If not, can I get a mover on recommendation 1, which is to for the bylaw to be read or introduced and read for a first and second time? Moved by Councillor Fizzle, seconded by Councillor Matheson and Councillor Bratton. Further discussion? Okay, District of Clearwater 2026 annual tax rates, bylaw number 335, 2026. A bylaw to establish 2026 annual tax rates, whereas pursuant to section 165 of the Community Charter, Council has prepared a 5-year financial plan for the period of January 1st, 2026 to December 30th, 31st, 2030. And whereas the 5-year financial plan as presented has been considered and approved by Council, and whereas it is necessary under section 197 of the Community Charter to establish tax rates to raise the revenue for municipal purposes identified in the year 2026 of the 5-year financial plan, and whereas to meet its taxing obligation in relation to other local governments or public bodies, certain amounts are to be collected for the 2026 year by means of rates established by the District of Clearwater. Now, therefore, the Council of the District of Clearwater, in open meeting assembled and acts as follows. This bylaw may be cited as District of Clearwater 2026 Annual Tax Rates Bylaw number 335, 2026. All those in favor? And that passes. And then there is recommendation for this to be read for a third time. Moved by Councillor Bratton, seconded by Councillor Fizzle. District of Clearwater 2026 Annual Tax Rates, bylaw number 335, 2026, a bylaw to establish 2026 annual tax rates. Whereas pursuant to section 165 of the Community Charter, Council has prepared a 5-year financial plan for the period of January 1st, 2026 to December 31st, 2030. And whereas the 5-year financial plan as presented has been considered and approved by Council, and whereas it is necessary under section 197 of the Community Charter to establish rates to raise the revenue for municipal purposes identified in the year 2026 of the 5-year financial plan, and whereas to meet its taxing obligation in relation to other local governments or public bodies, certain amounts are to be collected for the year 2026 by means of rates established by the District of Clearwater. Now, therefore, the Council of the District of Clearwater in open meeting assembles and acts as follows. This bylaw may be cited as the District of Clearwater 2026 Annual Tax Rates Bylaw number 335, 2026. All those in favor? And we have passed that on. We do have a couple of items of correspondence information only on table, if anybody would like to comment or have a say on that. City of Langford, permanent daylight savings resolution, and then District of Barrier, revenue sharing of provincial sales tax, PSD, goods and services, GST. That actually went to a SILGA resolution on the floor and I believe was passed. So, yeah, there was some questioning of it, but it was passed. I think it was actually one of the few that was actually debated a bit. So, and then we go on to notices of motion. There are 2 from Councillor Sim on the docket here. So they come up at the next meeting. What's this? I can never keep this straight. Notice of motion. It just comes up at the next meeting.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, it would come up for vote at the next meeting. Councillor Sim can have opportunity to discuss it now if she likes. But
Yeah, you can if you want.
So we've discussed sort of our trails several times, and I think the mayor has even sort of looked into the future and said, how can we leverage some of the trails that are existing. There was a woman who came up to me the other day and she said, "Oh my gosh, I have never used the trails before and they're incredible," and she biked them and she loved them. But what we have is we've got basically flat trails with no life to them. So if you were to come as a visitor, and you're staying at the Wells Gray Inn, or let's say you're staying at the Quality Inn, how do I get to Dutch Lake? Well, you can follow the path, but there's no direction to where the path is. So we aren't using this great network to help people engage in our community in a different way. They just look like flat asphalt. So even when you go through the Trails Master Plan, I mean, it's really all this motion should have said is to enact 4.51, develop a wayfinding signage program that helps users find components of the trail network and use it with confidence. And can we do that? It's a wonderful way for our residents. Let's say it was called, the Clearwater Myrtle Lake Trail. We don't name them. We just we don't have anything that helps us. And so even when you hear from visitors, there's no way that says 2 kilometers to the beach. There's no, it doesn't do anything. And yet what an asset, because we see it all the time. So this is just really something that can kind of invigorate the community, take an existing asset, very low hanging fruit, to maybe just name them. And that's it. And then how can we start working into it as a building block to look at other components of the Trails Master Plan to bring that to life? Maybe once we name it, does that give us a little more leverage? Should we apply for an active transportation grant to assist with this? But if we don't actually even have anything, then where do we go from? So is this an option to do a small start? So I do encourage you to kind of read it. I think it's very wordy, but it's coming from me, so that's not a surprise. It's true. And if there are amendments, or if you like it in principle, the fact that we could do something about it, and it's not asking for more staff time in terms of creating a whole new network. It's looking at what exists and making it better for our larger community and our visiting community. That's all I want to accomplish here, is how do we take an asset and make it shine and make it fun for people? Are there any questions about that particular one?
I was just at a park not very long ago, and one of the things that I noticed is that they had poles up like this, and on all 4 sides there was different, over here's that, and they also had little tidbits of information on it as well, and I really liked it, so I'm all for that.
And we have this will come back to a future council meeting, not necessarily the next one because it's only a week away, but they'll give it to staff. And do you want to talk about Week of Whimsy?
So, and the next thing is looking around our community, and sometimes some of the comments, and this is a tough time of year because things are quite dusty, and they haven't necessarily been freshened up, and all our lines haven't necessarily been refreshed. But have you been along trails where you've walked and all of a sudden you've come across something along the walk, whether it be sort of a hummingbird that's tucked into a tree or something, and it just catches you, and it's just that, it's Beth from the shop, she called it a glimmer. And how do we create moments of glimmer? Because right now they're just very utilitarian. So how do we incorporate a bit more whimsy into it? Exactly what you've just described, Councillor Frizzle, is that signage is an example of types of whimsy where you come across and you can have different things. We've got a lot of talented people. This project is not intended to be labor intensive. I listened to what we were hearing about the Children's Art Festival. Could this be incorporated into there? And so some of the projects from that become, woven along some of our trails. We saw it around the trail that goes down to the hospital, and the different rocks or the hearts in the trees or different things. But the district has never given permission for artistic displays of whimsy. So we do have a utilitarian. So how can we maybe change that for an artistic impression? We've got a lot of vibrancy, but we don't always demonstrate it visibly on our sleeve. And so that's what this is about. The Public Arts Committee, is this something to kind of champion? It's meant to be organic. Can we work with a community partner? So maybe it's a weekend workshop. But I wanted to bring it to council because it would be on district lands, and you don't want a whole bunch of sort of random things that, maybe make it look unintended, if that makes sense. I also look at, a week of whimsy and how do we do more? Like when you come down the Wells Grey Inn, we've got those big cement blocks. You look at that and it's like, wow, that's actually a blank landscape. And what could be painted on there? Could that be some of our great attributes? We've got the blocks down here by the RCMP. They're just gray industrial blocks when in fact they're actually canvas for possibly something new and something vibrant. Again, it's intended to be grassroots. What does the community want to contribute? How can we make it? It's not intended to be burdensome at all, just how we invigorate ourselves.
Okay, thanks for laying that out. Is there a community or two that has done this that you could suggest as an example to look into?
Yeah, so for example, and I was hoping that maybe it might have been visible in Revelstoke. They've actually got a sponsored one. They've got some cute things. They do it for their ski hill.
Okay.
Where they do it, but it's done really well and it's funded. It's on their municipal website. I had provided some examples to Mr. Prime, which I can forward into all of you, where it is just, some small things. I don't know if you've got that, Mr. Prime.
Yes.
But Revelstoke is a really good one for that one. Squamish, because they've got all of their placemaking that they do, and so that they use art for placemaking and places of gathering, and just
Whatever their event happens to be that week, they have it all over the community.
Councillor Matheson, you had a question?
Yeah, Caslo actually, Caslo, yes, they have an actual walk
Yes.
up the river and down the other side with concrete figures coming out of rocks and trolls and things like that, and it's incredibly popular. People walk around. It's pretty amazing. It's well used. So,
and interesting.
you know, I don't know if the timeline that you've got mentioned here for summer 26, but I would love to see this fleshed out for sure.
Or piloted.
And onto
Mr.
some point,
Johnson,
yeah.
you look like you want to have a comment.
Thank you. My understanding is there's an arts committee meeting coming up fairly shortly. Have you run this concept through that committee?
No, I wanted to bring it here to exactly gauge that. I know one of the conversations that you and I have had is to be really sensitive about particular staff time. I would look to you, as that type of direction. That's not for me. I think it fits well. And I think that there's probably other avenues. They might have ideas of what that community partnership might look like, again, to move it away from district responsibility. This is not intended to be district responsibility put back to the community, for the community, by the community. And even if we wanted to do something very small, so perhaps to Councillor Matheson's point, this doesn't, move forward, spit soon, or whatever. What are other ways that we can use our community that brings it to life? One of the things that we see is, where is a corner of advertisement? So we only see the farmer's market and the sign's not always up. Well, why wouldn't we have it up at a corner where people know that there's the farmer's market every Saturday, that there's always going to be music in the park? There's all sorts of things that are happening, but we don't advertise it visibly. And that could be a really exciting, and people could make their own sign, give their own personality to it. But how do we tell people about how much more we are?
Okay, cool. Thank you. So these staff will take a little bit of time to bring reports back at a meeting or two.
And edit. I mean, again, they're too wordy, but the intention is to try and get to something that is not arduous, but fun.
And so for the record, I actually think it would be worthwhile taking this to the Arts Committee to flesh it out a bit more, and if that committee would have the time and effort to put into this, that would reduce whatever that staff time is. Obviously, staff time is, in particular this year, is at a critical level, right?
And we just heard a huge report on everything that Ms. Culp is doing. So again, it's not the intent, it's to plant seeds about what could be, and maybe somebody will pick it up.
Okay, cool. This will come back at a future council meeting.
When would that be?
Well, I don't think it's going to be the next one, because that turnaround time is a little bit quick on that, especially with the first one. So, and if you're going to float it at an arts meeting, then when's the next arts meeting? Is it
It's
this week?
this Thursday.
Yeah. So, I think that I'll have to leave that to Mr. Johnson to tell you on that. We do have a bunch of balls in the air, but go ahead.
So our council meeting after next week,
26 is
May 26th.
Yeah. So probably.
Because I think
At least one
next
of them
week is
would
just
be-
too short to bring a report to it. But by the 26th, we could certainly, you could have met with the Arts Committee, have their thoughts on it. We could talk about that. We could talk about where that leads for this project, right?
Yeah, and I guess I'm just looking for clarity because I didn't realize motions required reports. But I'm happy to pass a motion now, if you feel.
Okay.
Just
Anyways,
kidding.
yeah.
That's
Okay.
great. Thank you
Okay,
very
and then
much.
it comes to the next meeting for whatever comes. Okay, public comment periods. Annabelle, anything you would like to ask about?
Did I overhear you, or am I dreaming? Did you say something, this has to do with BC Transit? Did you say something about December? I thought you said something about December and I didn't catch it.
Yes, so it was just a question about BC Transit in December, and that is in regards to the annual transit review. Once every, 5 or so years, BC Transit looks to come and review the current service levels and just determine, if they're all sort of the service levels, what the public is expecting, is what council is expecting, kind of review ridership numbers and kind of go from there.
Yeah, it's a bit of a survey. They don't generally change things at these service reviews unless something is absolutely glaring, like a bus that just never gets any customers. But yeah, it's standard practice for them. Okay, motion to adjourn. Moved by Frizzle and Bratton seconded. All those in favor, and we are adjourned. 355, who wins the pool?